bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Let's tune in sports on this day. On this day in 1972, Willie Mays hits a home run to beat his old team, the San Francisco Giants, 5-4 in his first game as a New York Met.
Pitch to Mays, and it's way back in left field. It could be. It's going, and it is a home run for Willie Mays, number 647 in his career.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. Giving up, I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is,
or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Do want to begin with a couple of headlines from the Bloomberg Professional Service. BT's in talks to sell a multi-billion-pound stake in OpenReach, this according to the FP. And out of Washington, word that the United States Postal Service is going to review package delivery deals with Amazon, UPS, and FedEx. This according to the Washington Post. FedEx shares, they're trading down now by 1.4%. As for some of the other stocks, Amazon is up by 0.3%, UPS up by 0.2%. It is an update for the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ just turning lower. Let's begin there. NASDAQ down 6 now, a drop there of just about 0.1%. But the S&P holding on to a 10-point gain, up 0.4%. The Dow advancing by 0.8%. 10-year up 11.30 seconds with a yield of 0.61%. Gold up 0.8%, 17.30 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil surging 8% now, 27.31 a barrel. Recapping, mixed Thursday, S&P up 11, a gain of 0.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of power continues. And once again, here's your host, David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Debates about when to open the economy back up have boiled over from talk to protest, as those eager to get out of their houses have engaged in organized protests, and some have just ignored the order to stay home altogether. The conflict has been particularly graphic in my home state of Michigan, where protesters brandishing weapons went into the Capitol building and disrupted government business. Welcome now the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, Dana Nessel. So, Madam Attorney General, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. A week or so ago, I talked to Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, and I asked him, was it lawful to carry weapons into the Capitol building? And he told me something I found almost unimaginable, which is lawful to carry a gun into the Capitol building, but not a poster. Is that true?
It is 100% true. We have a Michigan Historic Capitol Commission that basically authorizes the rules and regulations as to what can and cannot take place inside of the Capitol building and on its grounds. And they decided that signs were more dangerous than guns because they said that signs could potentially chip paint or be harmful to some of the historic artwork that is in the Capitol. And I said to them, well, if you think a sign can be damaging to a wall. Wait till you get an AR-15 shot into it and see what happens to it. But that's the truth. That is factually accurate.
Well, you mentioned AR-15s. I just saw the photographs. I wasn't there, but it looked like they actually had assault weapons or assault-type weapons, AR-15s, as they went in. They were brandishing them. And did they actually go into the chamber itself?
They went into the Senate gallery. And you may have seen some pictures that were taken from our state senators as some of these individuals were pacing back and forth, displaying their military-grade weapons and shouting at our senators as they were debating bills and voting on them. The House gallery was closed, but there were a number of protesters that tried to break onto the floor of the House, but were stopped by the state police and our Capitol Police from doing so. But I will say that was the last protest before the one that was this morning. Things were under much better control today for a number of reasons. One, I had spent a lot of time coordinating with the state police to ensure we didn't have a repeat of what happened last time. But secondly, because it was storming and raining out today, and apparently some of these protesters feared the rain a little bit more than they feared COVID-19. But in addition to that, our House Speaker and our Senate Majority Leader elected to cancel session today. So neither the House nor the Senate was in session.
Is there any move afoot to have the legislature actually enact a statute that says you can't carry guns in and disrupt the business of the House or the Senate?
Absolutely. The Democratic caucuses of both the House and Senate have asked for that and proposed resolutions to that effect. And I have indicated to the Capitol Commission that they absolutely are vested with the authority to ban firearms from the Capitol if they wish to do so, and as so many other state capitals do. And, of course, that's what we do on a national level with Congress. We don't allow firearms into the Capitol. However, they have thus far elected not to, and unfortunately, the Republicans that are in the majority in both the House and Senate absolutely refuse to restrict firearms of any kind at this point, including assault weapons, which to me, as the state's top law enforcement official, I can't contemplate a more dangerous situation than this. And I truly believe it's only a matter of when, not if, there is a very, very serious situation involving a mass shooting that occurs at our Capitol if something is not done quickly.
Attorney General Nessel, expand this more broadly to the stay-at-home orders, because, again, I've seen photographs now of someone on Owasso, for example. I think it was a hair salon or a barbershop, just refusing to comply with the rules. What is the level of compliance with the governor's orders at this point in the state of Michigan?
Well, at this point, I've seen polling that suggests that some 72% of state residents approve of the decisive and life-saving measures taken by our governor. And I think the vast majority of people understand that, listen, I get it. People are hurting. No one's happy about that. Nobody's happy about shutting down schools or businesses. And I know that when I ran for office in 2018, I ran with the pledge of shutting down corporate polluters, not barbers and not florists. But, we've had over 4,700 people die in our state. And, this is a really serious situation. So what I tell people time and again is, the recession hit us particularly hard in, 2008, 2009. And so many people lost their employment, lost their businesses. But, we bounced back. And we'll bounce back from this. But the one thing that you can't recover from is when you've lost your life, right? You'll never get that chance. And I think that people understand that, and for the most part, support our governor and want to work together. But the problem is that when you have people like our president who are instigating things, and you talk about these protesters, these armed protesters, and the threats against our governor and other state officials being very good people, it just encourages them. It encourages white supremacy group. It encourages militia organizations, which we have a terrible history of in our state. And I think we're at the 25th anniversary around of the Oklahoma City bombing, which involved members of the Michigan militia. And it's a dangerous set of circumstances when they get encouragement from people like the president.
Is there any question of the legal basis for the governor's order? If you go across Lake Michigan and Wisconsin now, we have the Wisconsin Supreme Court now really ruling that it was out of order in the state of Wisconsin. Do you have a similar issue? Are there challenges, legal challenges to Governor Whitmer's orders?
There are, but of course, our state law is different than Wisconsin. Our Constitution is different than Wisconsin, and the makeup of our Supreme Court is as well. And there have been a number of challenges filed, one of which will be heard in our Court of Claims, which is the circuit court level, the trial court level, on Friday. And we'll see what the court has to say about it. But unless or until a court of law rules otherwise, these executive orders are lawful and they're enforceable, and the vast majority of people understand that they are necessary to protect human life, and they're abiding by them.
Just finally, and this is my personal curiosity, is there a geographic difference in the reaction? For example, from the southeast, as opposed to up north, as we would say, is there more resistance to the stay-at-home up north?
Very much so, I think, and that's part of the problem. That's sort of the blue versus red demographic, is that the more populous areas where the virus has spread and has disproportionately impacted people tend to be more Democratic, and the less populous areas that are more rural tend to be more Republican and have been not hit as hard, so they don't seem to appreciate quite yet how harmful it will be if it hits their communities.
Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your joining us. That is Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. And that's going to do it for Balance of Power for today. I'm David Weston, and this is Bloomberg.
This pandemic is about more than markets.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
Sports fans, this is David Jacoby telling you to check out the Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, as it continues this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Our biggest challenge is us. I am cursed this mentality of competitiveness.
Competition is an addiction. Every game is a battle. Dennis, get up here. And then, immediately after the show, listen to Jalen Jacoby's After Show podcast featuring The Last Dance director, Jason Aaron. Search Jalen and Jacoby to start listening today.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of active
Round the Bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
The Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Kevin Clark.
If Josh Allen became the 10th best quarterback in football this year, they'd probably win 14 games. Am I wrong about that?
No. If you as a quarterback can't win in the Bills' situation right now, they should not extend you. So many teams, Jets, do not have the information they need to evaluate their quarterbacks based on the teams they've built around. The Bills do.
Listen and subscribe to the Mina Kimes Show podcast.
Search the Mina Kimes Show to listen.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Mazur and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right,
everybody. We made it. It's Thursday, May 14th, 2020, live from New York and New Jersey, streaming on YouTube. And, man, I've been scratching my head over this one because, Jason, we had another set of crazy statistics, staggering. We knew it was coming, and yet here we are. And investors kind of looking way beyond it, bidding up the stock market, venturing into some of those sectors of the market that have really been beaten down. Right? We've all been like, what?
I confess, I was not looking at the market for a couple hours because I was taping our Business of Sports show. Tune into that this weekend. Get it wherever you get your podcast. And I didn't notice that the market had turned because the last I saw, we were talking on our planning call this morning, and we were all like, womp, womp. The market's reacting essentially like we thought it would, and like it's been reacting the few days that we've had so far this week, which we're calling Reality Check Week.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to get into that. And I've got to say, banks are helping the markets head higher. We've got a great name to talk about the bank sector. You're going to know it. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. Right now, though, let's check on that trading day. Here is Charlie Pellet.
All right. I thank you very much, Carol Master. Going to begin with the banks. Wells Fargo up now by 6.1%. Bank of America up 3%. Citigroup up 1.3%. JP Morgan Chase up by 3.6%. What a turnaround today for the U.S. stock market. At the worst level, we had the Dow down 458 points, up now by 98. That had been a drop of 2%. S&P 500 index had been down 53. Right now, it is flat, little change, down by half a point, 28.19. NASDAQ on the minus side, it is down now by 39, a drop there of 0.5%. Got to stay with Bloomberg Business Week right through the closing bell to find out how things shake out and also find out how Asian markets react tonight. Stocks, for the most part, higher as a rally in banks and energy companies outweighs pessimism over bleak economic data and trade tensions. Crude, a big story today, up 7.5%, $27.19 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude. 10-year, the yield there 0.61%. Gold up 0.8%, $17.29 the ounce. So again, recapping, S&P now lower by a point, little changed at 28.18. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, thank you so much, Charlie. Much more ahead, but let's kick it off and set the Business Week agenda. Talk about that top story, which is the jobless claims report and the market reaction. Trying to make sense of it with us are Dave Wilson, stocks editor for Bloomberg, also the author of the chart and stock of the day. He'll be with us throughout the show to bring us that. He joins us from New Jersey. Michael McKee, international economics and policy correspondent for Bloomberg. He's been watching these eco data points all week, including from Jay Powell and his commentary yesterday. He joins us from New York City. Dave, I want to start with you. Tell us about the stock reaction.
Well, I mean, initially you had stocks down, and it's really been sort of a turnaround kind of day. Now, the S&P 500 has backed off its high. Nonetheless, I mean, what's going on to financial shares is particularly noteworthy because, you know, the KBW Bank Index, which tracks 24 of the largest U.S. banks, gets the likes of JP Morgan and Bank of America, as well as the biggest regional lenders. I mean, in the space of 2 weeks, that index had been down 18%, and it looked like it was headed for a 20% plus decline when you added in today. And then, you know, came the reversal. And as we speak, that index is up 2.6%. Wells Fargo helping to lead the way with a gain of 6.5%. I mean, that's really kind of set the pace here.
Right.
At a time when, you know, the broader market has certainly kind of floundered a bit.
Dave, we'll come back to you, but I got to bring in Mike McKee, international economics and policy correspondent at Bloomberg News. So, Mike, does this enthusiasm in the market, and I know it's been a rough couple of days, but does the enthusiasm in the market make any sense when you look at the jobless claim numbers, when you look at the economic statistics, when you look at, you know, what our near-term and maybe midterm looks like for the U.S. economy?
I was going to say I have the easy job because I can just do the numbers, and Dave has to figure all that out. It doesn't make sense if you think the market is pricing in a V-shaped recovery and that we are going to really get going fast again. But if you think of a couple things, first of all, that the Fed is providing enormous amounts of liquidity, and second of all, that the old saying, Tina, there's no alternative. I mean, you look at the stock market, the S&P dividend yield is like over 2%, and what's a 10-year Treasury yielding right now? So there may be some reasons why you want to be in equities. I would hesitate to tie any of it together. If you ask me for advice, you're going to be losing money. But man, the claims number's still bad.
Yeah.
Almost 3 million, and it doesn't show any sign of immediately going below that. What seems to be happening is a lot of people who had filed and got caught up in the backlogs in their state are now showing up on the roll. So maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll see it start to decline. I want to point out one number that people hadn't really focused on. They added in the CARES Act something called pandemic unemployment assistance, which expanded the benefits to people who usually aren't eligible, like gig workers. If you're not able to drive your Uber, that was 842,000 people last week and 1 million the prior week. So a lot of people who wouldn't ordinarily get jobless claims benefits are getting them now, and we're getting a kind of picture of how many people were in that gig economy.
That's a really interesting point, because oftentimes, quibble may be the wrong word, but we look at numbers, and certainly smarter people than I, like you, Mike, look at the numbers that we get from the government and say, well, but it doesn't take into account this, or it doesn't take into account that. So I really like that point. The other thing that I would ask you, Mike, is having heard from Jay Powell yesterday, having heard from any number of Fed speakers, what's the thing that jumps out to you that we need to know about this economy right now?
I think what you look at is the declining confidence the Fed has in the rebound possibility. I mean, when they started cutting rates back in mid-March, they were talking about how this would get us through and we'd be able to bounce back reasonably quickly because we'd come into this so strongly. And now Jay Powell yesterday saying, here's all the things that could go wrong. We're going to have a slow, grinding recovery, and Congress is going to have to do more. So they're definitely more pessimistic on the outlook for the rebound than they had been.
Yeah. Good point, and something for us to all think about. Hey, Dave, I teased ahead or looked ahead and saw that you're going to do banks a little bit later on for your chart of the day. Just give us a little tease here.
Absolutely. Banks versus technology stocks. Suffice it to say, they've been really weak lately, and there's at least one analyst that figures you're going to see a reversal soon.
All right. And speaking of analysts, we've got Mike Mayo. He is the go-to guy. He is the guy, as Jason Kelly would say, when it comes to talking about banks. He also caught up recently with one of the former Washington insiders of the Trump team and had a conversation with him and gave us some insight about what's to come. Hey, guys, thank you so much. Michael McKee, of course, of Bloomberg News, along with Dave Wilson, who's going to be along a little bit later on with that chart, as well as his stock of the day. Jason, we got more to come.
We do. And you mentioned Mike Mayo. He'll be along with us a little bit later. We also have the co-founder of The Honest Company. You've heard of that. Maybe you've heard of Jessica Alba. She was involved in this. Her co-founder, he's got a new company. It has to do with stress. We're all familiar with that amid this pandemic. And CBD, that was something we were talking a lot about heading into this. I'm interested to hear how all of this fits together.
Speaking of stress, man, Danny Meyer, the restaurant industry, they are just hurting. You know it from the conversations that we've been having here with well-known chefs and owners of restaurants that you thought would maybe possibly immune. But Danny Meyer, man, he's saying his dining rooms will not open until a vaccine is found, which mirrors what we heard Bob Crandall say yesterday about the airline industry.
All that ahead. Let's do the Bloomberg Business Week Bite of the Day. This is my favorite part of the show so far. One number that tells us a lot. Today's number, 0. Krispy Kreme, one of the great institutions in this country, will offer a free dozen donuts to any college or high school graduating senior from May 18th to 24th at participating locations. The senior has to be dressed in their graduation cap and gown, class of 2020 t-shirt, Letterman jacket, or other graduation gear in order to be eligible for the offer.
And
I love Krispy Kreme.
Can I just say you get chocolate ice cream filled, strawberry ice cream filled, cake batter filled, and yellow iced original glazed donuts. Num, num, num. And they're arranged to spell out 2020, which is very sweet.
I know. I love Krispy Kreme. Good Southern company down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Really? No, I do
like glazed. I know. I'm
in New Jersey. All right, let's get to Bob Moon. He's got your world.
Say it like you're shocked.
Hey, Bob.
Thank you, Jason. Just breaking on the Bloomberg terminal, California virus cases have climbed 2.8% to 73,164, and deaths are up 3% 3.3% in California. Whistleblower Rick Bright warned today that the U.S. lacks a plan to produce and fairly distribute a coronavirus vaccine when it becomes available. The nation could face what he called the darkest winter in modern history unless leaders act decisively. He spoke to a congressional panel. Bright alleges he was ousted from a high-level scientific post after warning the Trump administration to prepare for the pandemic. The House of Representatives will vote tomorrow on permitting future meetings to be held remotely for the duration of the coronavirus crisis. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Washington.
The proposal would allow members to vote by giving their proxy to a colleague who came in person and by accessing the electronic vote board if that's eventually deemed secure. Rules Committee Chairman Jim McGovern.
Some members cannot come back. Some members represent districts that are hotspots. We could be asymptomatic carriers of the disease.
Ranking Republican Tom Cole.
A lot of members only talk to people with different political opinions when they're here, and they sort of have to because the person has a vote, and I think they also develop a lot of personal relationships.
An effort was made to find bipartisan consensus. It wasn't doable. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Republican Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina temporarily stepping aside as chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee today after the FBI served a search warrant for his cell phone. It's part of an ongoing insider trading investigation tied to the coronavirus pandemic. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
There are times when you have to go it alone. But these should not be those times.
With a medical crisis in any other central bank execute?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell.
Walk me through the dynamics that are going to shape the euro in the coming months.
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
Do we have the ability to coordinate with this virus?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
When things move this quick, do things break?
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Pop salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the orchestra's 4th of July tradition continues. The program will feature guest artists, highlights from past fireworks displays, new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis, and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen Saturday, July 4th, starting at 8 Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She's faced furious protests to Michigan's coronavirus restrictions.
I didn't ask to be thrown into the national spotlight. I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm never going to apologize for that because lives are at stake here.
Governor Whitmer talks with Susan Glasser on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen to this episode on TuneIn today.
Sports fans, this is David Jacoby telling you to check out the Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, as it continues this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Our biggest challenge is us. I am cursing this mentality of competitiveness.
Competition is an addiction. Every game is a battle. Dennis, get up here. And then, immediately after the show, listen to Jalen Jacoby's After Show podcast featuring The Last Dance director, Jason Aaron. Search Jalen and Jacoby to start listening today.
It's Tune In Sports on this day. On this day in 1972, Willie Mays hits a home run to beat his old team, the San Francisco Giants, 5-4, in his first game as a New York Met.
Pitch to Mays, and it's way back in left field. It could be. It's going, and it is a home run. A home run for Willie Mays, number 647 in his career.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Get your daily dose of NFL shop talk with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Start your morning off right with Around the NFL.
Injured, depleted roster into the playoffs, and I didn't think they belonged in the playoffs.
I think overall, though, it was a great divisional round weekend because you got the first one.
Run into the end zone with the Move the Sticks podcast.
We had a fun little Zoom cocktail hour last night.
Oh, yeah.
What a star-studded affair. Greg, you were there for the earlier part, but it really popped off a little later on. We had Zach Goldman.
And dive deep into the sidelines with the Peter King podcast.
On the occasion of his 50th birthday, come down and record a little bit of retrospective on the life and times of Brett Lorenzo Favre.
That sounds like a bestseller.
It sounds like a precursor to a funeral. That's what it is.
I wasn't thinking that.
Explore these and more hard-hitting NFL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Governor Cuomo providing his latest update in New York. Number of headlines I want to pass along. First of all, says Central New York is ready to start reopening. Also says that he spoke with President Trump this morning. The president is expediting a $3.9 billion payment to keep the MTA running. And Governor Cuomo says New York reported 157 new virus deaths. That marks the second day of declines. Equities higher across the board here with the Dow up 135 points, up by 0.6%. S&P's up 4 now. That's a gain of 0.2%. The S&P at 2824. The Dow, by the way, 23,383. Again, up 0.6%. NASDAQ, though, on the minus side. NASDAQ is down 27 points, a drop there of 0.3%. 10-year, the yield 0.62%. Gold up 0.9%. 17.30 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 8.1% right now, back above $27 a barrel on WTI. 27.33. Brent, by the way, is at $30.84. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, really appreciate that update. We do want to get an update on the virus, too. And someone who has seen other outbreaks and pandemics is our next guest. He is Tolbert Ninswa, and he's a senior research associate at Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health. And he's former deputy minister of health for the Republic of Liberia. He has seen a lot. Of course, the Bloomberg School of Public Health, supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of this namesake network. And Tolbert joining us on the phone from Smyrna, Delaware. Tolbert, so nice to have you here with us. I have been so looking forward to talking with you. Tell us about your experience and what you've seen in the past with Ebola and other viruses and how it compares and to today's pandemic and what we can learn.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hope you're keeping safe.
Yes, you too.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, the thing is we've learned a lot. One of the things that I think that is in our toolbox to deal with COVID-19 is the issue of contact tracing. It's been downplayed, but it's an important tool because contact tracing was a very key part of the 2014-2016 Ebola outbreak, of which I was the incident manager. And what contact tracing does, it can help end COVID-19 because the objective is to identify exposed persons and prevent secondary infection. If people in the first generation of cases of infection cannot generate additional cases, then you can end the outbreak. Then we can all open up and be happy and move along. So, but the terrible thing is that one missed contact can keep this outbreak going and going. And so contact tracing is an important tool. That's one of the lessons that we learned in the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. It brought the outbreak under control. Very important.
So, Tolbert, it's interesting to hear more and more about contact tracing. We also know from surveys and polls that some people are either skeptical about it or resistant to it, and in part based on who's going to be in charge of it. How is the best way to sort of create a system that people will not only believe in, but will effectively follow and participate in?
So, thank you. They are contact tracing principles. The first thing we must know is that contact tracing is not new. It's a public health interventions that have been used to manage major public health epidemics. Number one, you know the word eradicated smallpox. Tuberculosis today is being used, syphilis, HIV and AIDS, vaccine preventable diseases. There are legal basis principles, and contact tracing got a legal authority from public health intervention, even in the U.S. Constitution and state laws. Clauses to protect the public welfare as well as common law and general principles. One thing that can encourage the population of the United States is public health need to be protected. We require our children to take vaccines, to attend schools, to protect the communities, to protect health and safety. And if you have tuberculosis, for example, and you refuse to take your medication, you can be required to do so by the health department of this country so you cannot infect other people. The same way with COVID-19. So contact tracing, to make it simple, this is where together we saw the urgency to limit the spread of COVID-19. The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, with the Bloomberg philanthropy, we designed this course so that people can understand what it is. And it's free, it's online.
Right. It's interesting. I've seen that. And you're right. It's a course for people who want to just understand it and know how it works or possibly get involved in helping the process. I do want to ask you one question. How do you do successfully and the right way contact tracing as well as start to reopen the economy? Can they go hand in hand?
My fear is that from an expert point of view, though COVID-19, the case fatality rate is low. The number, though, right now we're talking about a number in the 70,000 Americans, close to that, if not 80,000 right now. We're looking at the data shortly. But you don't want, there was a reason why we closed up. The reason we closed up and locked down people for social distancing and all of that, it was because of an infection. Imagine the outbreak started with a single case, and fewer cases coming to come online. Now, if you open up without getting to appreciable or zero cases and don't know all of the contact, it is inconceivable that we are giving a virus a blank check to engulf us and continue to inflict irreparable loss that poses existential threats to mankind. And reopening prematurely, for me, will cause more damage than good. So we have to make sure that it is done carefully. We look at the science and the data, which states, which districts, which community having infection.
Hang on, Tolbert. We're going to take a break and come back and continue this conversation. I think that was a really important point for everyone to take in. We're talking about Tolbert Ninswa. He's Senior Research Associate in the Department of International Health at Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health, former Deputy Minister of Health for the Republic of Liberia. Of course, Bloomberg School of Public Health, supported, I should say, by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Radio.
That's right. Looking forward to continuing that conversation. I mean, this is at the core of how we get back. We know that to be the case, and
Testing
it is a
and
subject
tracing.
of a lot of discussion. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks have turned mixed after beginning the day lower on another dismal jobs report. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 67, the S&P 500 down 2 points, the Nasdaq Composite is down 48. Before the coronavirus, we counted weekly jobless claims in the thousands. Now they're in the millions. The government says nearly 3 million more claims were filed last week. The 8-week total is up to 36.5 million. New Jersey beaches will be open for the Memorial Day weekend with social distancing in place, but for many beach businesses, there's no reprieve. Governor Phil Murphy says rides, arcades, games, and other amenities will stay shut. Ford and Volkswagen are pushing ahead with their plan to team up on electric and self-driving vehicles. The companies expect to seal their partnership by the end of June, citing the need to share the large investments needed to develop the technologies. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. Bloomberg and
The force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. You have that power too.
For the first time ever, stream the complete Skywalker saga, all in one place. 9 incredible films, one epic story, only on Disney+.
The force will be with you. Always.
The Skywalker Saga on Disney+. Now streaming. 18+ subscription required. T's and C's apply.
At Moonpig, we've got making people happy down to a science. How? With flowers. Research shows that whether small blossoms or giant blooms, roses or peonies, receiving bouquets of any formation causes our bodies to produce endorphins, or the happy chemical. Thank you, Professor. And you too can harness the power of flowers with Moonpig. It's easy. Send a beautiful hand-tied bouquet of happiness straight from our app with just a couple of taps. Heartfelt can happen anywhere with Moonpig.com.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone,
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be one team hold up the trophy.
Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL Draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season, like the Ringer NFL Show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, just
carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Coronavirus is a global pandemic and a local story, but vast swaths of this country have no local news to speak of. It's the business model, stupid.
If a Starbucks had given away coffees for free and then started wanting to charge $5, people would have gone nuts.
The death and perhaps new life of local news on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 1061. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So we're going to continue our conversation, checking in with Tolbert Nitzwa over at Johns Hopkins. What's interesting is he's worked on past academics. I can't even speak today.
Academics and epidemics.
Yeah, exactly. All of it, right? All that bad stuff. So he said incredible insight about how that applies and what we can learn during this crisis. So we'll get back to that conversation in just a minute. Let's get back to Charlie Pellett with your top headlines. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Carol Master. Here's what's going on. Stocks are getting whipsawed as a rally in banks and energy companies tempers pessimism over bleak economic data. S&P 500 index erasing losses as Wells Fargo leads gains in financial companies, while a surge in oil pushes producers higher. Among some of the financial names, Wells Fargo up 6.6%, Bank of America up 3.5%, Citigroup up 1.8%, JP Morgan Chase up by 3.9%. Equities mixed with the S&P up 9, a gain of 0.3%. The Dow up 191, up 0.8%. NASDAQ is down 14, a drop there of 0.2%. 10-year up 10/30 seconds with a yield of 0.61%. Gold up 0.9%. 17.32 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 8.5%, 27.42 a barrel. As economies reopen, there is concern about whether that will mean a spike in new coronavirus cases. Dr. Jason Farley is a professor of nursing at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health.
Everyone is opening up in slightly different ways across the country, across the world, and we really need to pay very close attention and be vigilant to how that opening up and how our change in our behavior, how our, quite frankly, our decrease in social and physical distancing from one another, a return to work, is going to impact new cases.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Cisco Systems higher after earnings, up now by 4.3%. Carnival plans to cut jobs, reduce salaries, and shorten work weeks to cope with a pandemic-driven halt of cruising. The job cuts will include furloughs and permanent reductions, according to a statement from the world's biggest cruise company. Shares of Carnival, they're down 0.9%. Rival, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, up 1.1%. Royal Caribbean down by 0.2%. Cruise, the self-driving car unit majority owned by GM, is laying off almost 8% of full-time employees to cut costs in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. General Motors shares, they're up now by 2.8%. I'm Charlie Pellett. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, let's continue our conversation with Tolbert Nyenswah. He is Senior Research Associate in the Department of International Health at Johns Hopkins University, Bloomberg School of Public Health. And you just heard more from one of their other experts via Charlie Pellet's newscast. And as he said, the Bloomberg School of Public Health, supported by Mike Bloomberg, owner of this radio station. And Tolbert, you, as we mentioned earlier, were also integral in the response to Ebola in West Africa a few years ago. And I wonder, given that experience and in anticipation of maybe a second wave of COVID-19 here in this country in the fall, what have we learned both from your past experience and from what we know so far about COVID-19 about how we deal with this when it comes back?
So thank you, Jackson. Look, time is very, very essential for disease outbreaks. During the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, our slogan was, "It is not over until it is over." So we were looking after every single case, testing, tracing their contact. Moving on, we need to be aggressive, take aggressive action for testing suspected and probable cases and robust contact tracing to conquer COVID-19, ramping up testing, tracing 100% of the contacts, isolating the sick. It will help significantly to stop COVID-19. And this is where some of the things that we need to do is people need to go the course that is being supported by the university, by the Bloomberg School of Public Health, the contact tracing course. This is just 6 hours to complete it. And it's about the basic information of the virus, fundamentals of contact tracing, such as how to define a case, identify their contacts, calculate the number of times the contact was in isolation.
Right.
These are things we do. And as we anticipate for another wave of the outbreak, even we haven't got out of the woods yet, so it's even difficult to talk about another wave. We have to beat this thing down.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I think, part of the process, right, is educating everyone. There's so much information floating around. And your point is we all have to understand how contact tracing works so that we can essentially buy into it because rightfully so, that's a way of really getting hold of this virus. Having said that, I do wonder then, as you see in the United States, states reopening, the process of coming back, it's not equal across the country. Do you think the process that's being done right now of reopening and people doing different things in different places, does it make sense or is it dangerous?
It's a huge risk. It's a huge risk. I'm seriously concerned after dealing with infectious disease like Ebola, though the magnitude and the fatality is not the same. The case fatality rate for Ebola, which is about 50% of the people that will get the disease with COVID-19, is less than 2%. But in that, COVID-19 is still infecting and killing a lot of Americans. And so I will be very, very cautious and sound this warning that it is very much premature to open up this country when you're having huge infection. States without, America is one country. This is one country. So whether a state is at 0 cases and another state is having the disease, we should be prepared to live with the disease. Unless someone is telling me that we are now give up, that this is an endemic disease that we're going to live with to kill people. But once there is no known cure, no vaccines, to open this country while you're putting the population of the United States at very, very serious risk. Right. This is what we are informing the public. It's important. Part of the course is skills for effective communication in tracing processes, such as what it means to be an active listener and how to deal with the common challenges that arise with investigating cases. So contact tracing is very important. Testing is important. Let us get to 0, then we know that we're making a progress.
Right. All right. Well, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Tolbert Nyenswah is Senior Research Associate in the Department of International Health at Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health. Also, importantly, the former Deputy Minister of Health for the Republic of Liberia, leading the Ebola outbreak. And I have to say, Carol, it strikes me in having this conversation that if you say to people here in America, this is like Ebola. We have lessons to learn from Ebola. Maybe that will sort of grab people a little bit more and understand how critical these things are right now.
Well, it struck me when you said it's premature to open when you have an infection, a live infection that is still certainly serious around the country. All right, great conversation. Let's get another check on world and national news headlines. Once again, here is Bob Moon.
Carol, thank you. Republican Senator Richard Burr is temporarily stepping down as chairman of the Intelligence Committee amid a federal investigation into whether he sold stocks as a result of secret briefings on the threat of the coronavirus pandemic. President Trump is putting distance between himself and the alleged wrongdoing.
I know nothing about it. Nothing about it. No, I never discussed it with anybody. That's too bad. That's too bad.
Announcing the decision in a written statement today, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he and Burr had agreed to stepping aside would be in the best interest of the committee. The Trump administration sought to discredit a top health official who says he was demoted for political reasons, though some House Republicans say his claims about the U.S. coronavirus response deserve investigation. Rick Bright, who was removed as head of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority last month, told the House Energy and Commerce Committee's health panel today that the administration was and remains woefully unprepared for the pandemic. In an exchange with Michigan Representative Debbie Dingell, Bright was asked about a claim Trump has been repeating since March.
The administration said anybody who wants a test will get a test. Was that true then?
There still are not enough tests.
He asserted that the U.S. still lacks a plan to produce and fairly distribute a coronavirus vaccine when it becomes available. President Trump called him very disgruntled and unhappy. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
In-depth analysis.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products, like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She's faced furious protests to Michigan's coronavirus restrictions.
I didn't ask to be thrown into the national spotlight. I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm never going to apologize for that because lives are at stake here.
Governor Whitmer talks with Susan Glasser on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen to this episode on TuneIn today.
Hey, it's Jacoby here from Jalen and Jacoby. And after you watch The Last Dance on ESPN, which you're obviously going to do just like the rest of us stuck in our homes in quarantine, you can join Jalen Rose and I for Jalen and Jacoby, The After Show. And we will be joined by the director of the documentary series, Jason Eyre, to discuss each episode in detail. You can hear our After Show right here on ESPN Radio on Sunday nights after the episodes air. And they'll be available on the Jalen and Jacoby podcast feed.
Search Jalen and Jacoby to listen today.
First, we're told that masks don't work. Then, we're told to wear them all the time. One week, we hear that the mortality rate is 2%. The next, well, who knows? In the time of COVID-19, there is so much uncertainty, and so much scientists are learning in real time, along with the rest of the world. So it's hard to know what you can be sure of and what's still a big question mark. Enter Podcast 19 from 538, where we'll explore the evidence behind the science in our fight against coronavirus. I'm science journalist Anna Rothschild. Each week, I'll investigate coronavirus mysteries, keep track of the latest developments on vaccines and treatments. Oh, and I'll try to edit out all the times I shush my family since I'm recording this thing from the chaos of my home.
Search Podcast 19 to listen today.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, you know, I just...
Carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day, I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live-breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. A seesaw session. S&P is now lower, down 4 points, down less than 0.2%. We've got the Dow holding on to a 66-point gain, up 0.3%. NASDAQ is down 50, a drop there of 0.6%. What a day it has been. Stocks getting whipsawed as a rally in banks and energy companies tempers pessimism over bleak economic data. At the worst level of the day, the Dow was down 458 points, up now by 69, up by 0.3%. 10-year yield 0.61%, up 11.30 seconds. Gold is up 1%, 17.33 the ounce. Crude, big move there. West Texas Intermediate up 8.4% right now, 27.39 a barrel. Recapping, S&P lower by 5, little change, down less than 0.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly, Carol Massar, and I believe a coughing Joel Weber. Hopefully he will catch his breath there and join us in a second. He is the editor of Bloomberg Business Week, joining us on a remote line from Brooklyn. Also, Sarah Fryer, tech reporter for Bloomberg, and notably the author of the fantastic new book, No Filter, The Inside Story of Instagram, the #1 new release on Amazon. I noted yesterday, Sarah joins us on the phone from San Francisco. She's back hard at work, pumping out great stories for the magazine. So I have to start with you, Joel. Oh, it wasn't you coughing. There you go. Thank you.
I think it was one of our...
It was not...
I think it was one of our...
It was one of our producers. Sorry, Joel. I didn't mean to call you out.
Yeah. No, totally.
It's okay, Joel. We'll still like you if you're coughing on air. It's okay.
So this story started actually with some amazing little tweets that I saw Sarah doing, and it was sort of just her asking people in Silicon Valley of like, hey, as companies announce that you don't need to come into the office between now and the end of the year, what are your plans? And the moment I saw her tweet those questions, I was like, whatever these answers are, I want to know about them. And Sarah, what did you find out?
Well, I just got this influx of replies from people who said, you know what, if I can take my tech salary with me and I don't have to go into the office, I want more space. I don't want to be paying $3,000 to $4,000 in rent for an apartment that isn't even close to my office, that isn't even giving me the space I need to feel comfortable. People with young children were feeling like they could really use a backyard right about now. And with that salary that you make in the tech industry, you could buy a house pretty much anywhere except the Bay Area. The Bay Area has had this incredible affordability crisis over the last few years. And even these tech workers really can't buy there if they're early in their careers yet. And that makes them a whole lot more mobile.
I gotta say, Sarah, I keep thinking about all these grand tech campuses, right? Apple just built a whole new headquarters. And I do wonder if, as you say in your story, these companies are known for being very office-centric, and yet maybe this will be a big change for them. I don't know. What are you hearing from the companies?
It's funny because they're building these tools for us to connect with each other remotely, right? But they are so office-centric. I mean, you've seen it parodied in HBO Silicon Valley. You've seen people just care so much about the perk wars. Are they going to give me laundry? Are they going to give me yoga? Are they going to give me these off-site retreats that we've heard about in the tech industry? It really has been a tool for recruiting. But guess what? When people go back to the office, they're not going to have those shared shuttle buses. They're not going to have the cafeterias where anyone can serve themselves their own food. They're not going to have these wide open places to gather indoors because companies are already talking about changing things up for coronavirus. And maybe we'll go back to cubicles. Maybe we'll go back to glass dividers. And I just think that the experience, everyone's saying not only is the experience is going to be so much different, but companies are realizing that all of those investments that they made in their office and that culture, their employees are still being productive from home, and they wouldn't make announcements like this if they weren't going to see a similar level of productivity from their staff. So I think we're going to see a very dramatic change in the investment in the office culture.
Okay, so Sarah, if I'm a tech worker and I can live anywhere and do my job remotely, that sounds pretty great, especially if I can keep my salary, right? But a company might look at that and say, you know what? Now that you're remote, maybe you don't deserve as much as before when the expectation was that you were on campus, and maybe there's even somebody that we might be able to pay less. How do you foresee that playing out?
In two directions, because employees, once they move, maybe not for this job, maybe they'll get to keep their salary for a couple of years while coronavirus is still an issue. But for the next job, for the next gig they're trying to find after that, the head of people at Twilio, one of the tech companies I talked to for this, said it's probably bad business practice for us to pay those people the same thing that we would pay them in the Bay Area. And by the way, because these workers are working from anywhere, maybe we can recruit from anywhere too. Maybe our next engineer doesn't have to come from San Francisco with those San Francisco salaries. Maybe they can come from Nashville.
Right.
Their labor pool, right? If you think about it, their potential workers, they can go anywhere they want, potentially.
So, Sarah, you wrote about so eloquently in your book, No Filter, The Inside Story of Instagram, by wherever you get your books. You wrote about so well about the culture of Facebook and the culture of Instagram. So many of these cultures, one could argue, do rely on the culture of Silicon Valley. And as you say, it's been parodied in Silicon Valley. It's been celebrated in movies like The Internship. My son and I watched that just the other night. And it's a very attractive, but also very collaborative way. It does encourage a certain vibe. How much do these companies worry about losing the things that made them so special?
They certainly worry about it. And that's one thing that really came through in my reporting for the book is that employees really cared whether the Instagram office looked different than the Facebook office, whether they were able to build their own vibe, their own brand, be as design-centric in their own way as they wanted to be. And I think that after this, we are still going to see an emphasis on office culture, but it's going to take a long time to get back to normal, and it won't go back to how it was. There will have to be a completely new normal. And I think that you're going to see culture evolve, just like we're seeing the way we communicate evolve. We are not able to, I went to a Zoom wedding over the weekend. I've been to a Zoom baby shower. Like, things are going to be different for a long time.
Okay, so I want to also have one more follow-up here, Sarah, and I know you didn't go into this in the story, but I'm really curious if we see this influx or exodus, I guess, tech exodus from California to other places in the country, could we potentially see there being sort of like a small business boom as people leave big tech companies? Could there be sort of a small tech movement that comes out of the pandemic?
And Sarah, got about 40 seconds here.
You are certainly going to see the potential for the next great startup to come from anywhere. And you're also going to see some gentrification in these towns that are getting this influx of workers with high salaries. But maybe it'll boost their economies on the flip side.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. All right, Sarah Fryer, great story, tech reporter for Bloomberg, also the author of No Filter, the inside story of Instagram. It's a great quarantine read.
Top at Amazon.
Great reviews. Yeah, it's all over the place.
So cool.
It's so good.
What an interesting, though, concept. Like, if you think about workers in general, if companies start to say, well, I can hire people from anywhere because they can work at home.
Yeah.
All right, great stuff. And our thanks to Joel Weber as well. For those of you listening in New York, D.C., and San Francisco, watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Business Week, we're going to continue. If you're listening on Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, Bay State Business is coming up next. Just think about that. We've talked about that with fitness, right? They can bring instructors in from anywhere. You can take a class with an instructor over in Europe if you're in the U.S. What if companies approach it the same way when it comes to workers?
Coming up, we're going to talk about jobs and the economy in eco. That's next.
This pandemic is about...
Whoa, just got a Moonpig reminder that it's your birthday Saturday.
Yeah, I set that up.
Oh, do you know what? I forget one time. Okay, I'm in the app.
Oh, the romantic card section.
I'm full of surprises. Now, what rhymes with babe?
How about just uploading a nice pic? No, wait, I'm not ready.
Hey, I love you from every angle. Now for the gifts. Oh, and flowers.
Heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app now.
Coronavirus is a global pandemic and a local story. But vast swaths of this country have no local news to speak of. It's the business model, stupid.
If a Starbucks had given away coffees for free and then started wanting to charge $5, people would have gone nuts.
The death and perhaps new life of local news on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
on the bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike. Just to go over the first couple of picks, Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind giving up. I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading on this Thursday. It's been a wild ride on Wall Street. Stocks, for the most part, higher right now, with the Dow, the S&P advancing. NASDAQ on the minus side right now. The Dow is up 154 points. That is a gain of 0.7%. At the worst level of the day, we had the Dow down 458 points, down 2%. Quite a recovery there. S&P little changed, up 2 points right now, a gain of less than 0.1%. Has been fluctuating. NASDAQ is down 20 for the NASDAQ Composite Index. That is a drop right now of just about 0.2%. Bottom line here, stocks getting whipsawed as a rally in banks and energy companies tempers pessimism over bleak economic data. Wells Fargo among the bank standouts today, shares up by just about 6%. JP Morgan Chase up 3.6%. Citigroup shares up 1.5%. Bank of America up 3%. And again, Wells Fargo advancing today by 6.1%. So how long will it take until we see a full economic recovery? That question this morning from Mike Wilson, Chief U.S. Equity Strategist at Morgan Stanley.
So we think we could get the economy in the U.S. back to where we were by the fourth quarter of 2021. All right, so that's a lot faster than what happened during the Great Financial Crisis, but it's still a long way away. Right? In other words, we have a huge hole to fill from this recession for the next 6 quarters before we even get back to where we were. And that process is what the market's trying to digest now.
And among the companies reporting after the closing bell, Applied Materials shares up now by 3.5%. The pandemic is crushing America's labor market. States processed another 2.98 million jobless claims last week. That brings the grand total since March to 36 million, worth repeating, 36 million, rivaling the Great Depression. Many of today's claims are tied to temporary layoffs. Gold is up right now by 1%, $17.33 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 8.5% at $27.43 a barrel. Recapping equities mix, we've got the 10-year 0.61%, S&P up 6. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Carol Masser, clearly our top story today is those jobless claims that you just heard Charlie Pellet talk about. We talked about it at the top of the show at 2 o'clock with Michael McKee. He gave us some great context there. Let's dig a level deeper now with our team. Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg, joining us on the line from the Poconos, and Carl Riccadonna, Chief U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics, joining us from New Jersey. Carl, I want to start with you. What jumped out at you amid all this? Because the market is sort of having a hard time figuring out what it thinks, but you're the smartest economist I know. So what did you think?
You don't know many economists. So.
Just say thank you, Carl. Just say thank you.
No, I take that back, and I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much. What I think we have to focus on here, obviously, what was driving the economy prior to this crisis was consumer spending. We did not have well-diversified growth in the economy. Business investment was already having a lousy year before COVID-19 came onto the radar screen. Housing was having a very insignificant improvement over the course of the winter month. It was all consumer spending with just a little bit of contribution from government. That means as we think of the recipe for recovery, which should be starting in the June, July, August period, it's going to look very much like what growth was resembling prior to the crisis, which means consumers are going to be critical to the recovery. If consumers are not participating, then there is not going to be much of a recovery to speak of, and that's why there's so much focus on unemployment filings and labor market metrics and whatnot. And while this was truly a terrible report this morning, I think there was a little bit of a silver lining, and that is continuing claims. The number of people who actually have been approved for unemployment insurance and are collecting those benefit checks increased by a very nominal amount. So we were seeing multi-million increases in prior weeks. Finally, we look like maybe, and again, one data point is not enough to spot a trend, but it looks like maybe it's starting to stabilize. And if we get confirmation of that in the next few weeks, at least we will know we've seen the worst of it.
That's a good point. I heard you talking about this earlier on Bloomberg Radio, and I was trying to get an understanding of, as you dig deeper into these numbers, what it ultimately tells us about the economy. Kathleen Hayes, come in on our conversation, what you heard from Carl.
Well, I think another important story today is Neil Kashkari, president of Minneapolis Fed, a virtual event with CBS, saying that he thinks Congress has to give more money to workers, people who are out of work. And we had that study out today suggesting that 1 out of 5 adults lost their job when you look at all the people who had to file those claims for unemployment benefits. And of course, those claims for unemployment benefits I think they have kind of a dual role. It's not just that you lost your job, because some people have raised the point. It's going to be tough to get some people back to work if you're making $600 a week, which is more than you were making before. You may not rush back to the workplace, but I think the other side of that, I think that's probably very true. But a lot of people like us, I've been working at home. My company can afford to pay me. We can keep our operation going. But if you work for a company that can't pay you to work at home, the government is going to pay you to stay home and stay out of harm's way. So I think it fulfills a very important role. But Kashkari, by saying Congress needs to give more money because a V-shaped recovery is off the table, is kind of echoing what Jay Powell, chair of the Fed, said yesterday when he talked about, a liquidity crisis becoming a solvency crisis. In other words, it's not just that you have to hold back on paying your rent for a couple of months if you're a business. You go out of business, you go bankrupt, right? He's talking about the bridge kind of collapsing in middle of the journey towards the other side, which is recovery, because the bridge needs more building, right? So you hear the Fed saying that more and more, and I just think it'll be interesting to see how that feeds into the political debate in Congress, because right now the Democrats and Republicans are not seeing eye to eye.
Therein lies the rub, right? So the government has said in some cases mandatory shutdown, or governors have said mandatory shutdown. So then what do you do for those workers who aren't in a situation like you said, we've got a company that's taking care of us, but that's not the situation for all workers who are saying, wait a minute, maybe I've got to go out there and put food on my table. So, what's the government's responsibility to providing benefits for these workers? I mean, Carl, when you look at these numbers, and this is becoming a political battle, which is unfortunate, but in your estimation, in terms of looking at these numbers, what's going on, we need more relief.
Well, Carol, the fact of the matter is there are a narrow cohort of workers that perhaps are collecting more on unemployment insurance than they would be in their regular job. However, when we start to think about health insurance and other types of benefits, then the scales start to equalize. So there's always a little bit of flukes in the system when you start to deliver mass amounts of change, or in this case stimulus, to an established economic system. And so just seeing that at the margins, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have a hard stop in the economy, an unprecedented economic contraction, about 3 times worse than what we saw in 2008, 2009. So if there's a little bit of overpayment for a few beneficiaries here, that's a problem I'm willing to endure, because the bigger issue is there's a mass stop to income generation in the economy, whether it's households or businesses. And if the government wants to see any type of recovery on the back end of this, then they have to fulfill the income gap, of that void, in the interim, or else we will limp out of this recovery. We learned that lesson in 2009, and we are in danger of repeating it if we suddenly say no more stimulus for an economy that is really hitting a difficult
I think, too, what people are looking at, of course, is down the road, we're going to have a huge debt, huge deficit. Does it finally come back to roost? We've had big deficits before. The economy never came crashing down. Our bond market didn't crash. Investors didn't flee. In fact, with the rest of the world selling lots of bonds to finance the same kind of steps they're taking, it's not like the dollar has a lot of competition in that sense, or treasury bonds for that matter. So that's probably one of the things that's going to carry us through that when we do get out on the other side. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg. Carl Riccadonna, Chief U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics. Carol?
And I thought what Carl said about if the government wants to see any kind of economic recovery, the government has to fill that income gap.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, it's going to be really miserable.
And Kathleen's point about the health and safety and, the government essentially paying people to stay at home, it's an important point as well. All right, let's get some world national headlines now. A lot going on. Todd Moon.
And thank you very much. Whistleblower Rick Bright warned lawmakers on Capitol Hill today that the U.S. lacks a plan to produce and fairly distribute a coronavirus vaccine when it becomes available, and that the nation could face the darkest winter in modern history, he said, unless leaders act decisively. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar denied it all.
Everything he's complaining about was achieved. Everything he talked about was done.
Including Trump's repeated insistence that testing is the best anywhere.
If people want to get tested, they get tested. We have the greatest capacity in the world.
Questioned by Michigan's Debbie Dingell, Bright insisted otherwise.
We're being told anybody who wants a test can have a test. Is that true in the United States of America?
No. Bright alleges he was acting decisively, and he told a congressional panel that he was ousted from a high-level scientific post after warning the Trump administration to prepare for the pandemic. Democratic activists and women's group are urging Joe Biden to keep addressing a former aide sexual assault accusation, Bloomberg's Nathan Hager reports.
Over the weekend, Kroger said it would rescind the $2 raise it gave store and warehouse workers during the pandemic. Target and Amazon plan to follow suit later this month. One union official puts it this way: how do you go from a hero to a zero when there's still a pandemic? But the head of HR consulting firm Willis Towers Watson says there's no need for an offset when shelter-in-place orders are being lifted. Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
Apologies for the mix-up there. We'll get that fixed. I'm Bob Moon. This is Bloomberg.
When you follow the facts,
Bloomberg's been reporting on this intelligence community report.
When you seek out the experts,
the investment banks that Bloomberg speak to also want some relief.
No matter what else is happening,
it's been pretty hard to read the signals.
At least you know what's real.
The economic fallout from the virus risks becoming entrenched.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you a interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. To be in the markets now, you need nerves of steel.
I mean, we're not supposed to be hysterical.
And Bloomberg surveillance.
Let's just start with something extreme.
What are you comparing this to?
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell.
Your call, your message to your clients on a morning like this morning.
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
What are you doing to adjust your economic growth numbers?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Fiscal stimulus could really shake things in the months ahead.
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Pop salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the orchestra's 4th of July tradition continues. The program will feature guest artists, highlights from past fireworks displays, new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis, and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen Saturday, July 4th, starting at 8 Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Jenny Liss, Jewish communal leader and philanthropist, talks about why she chose the Jewish Communal Fund for her family's charitable giving.
For a lot of people, it would be the convenience factor. I don't have to track anything.
If charitable giving is an important part of your life, JCF can help you organize your philanthropy with our donor-advised fund. A fund can be established with a minimum tax-deductible contribution of $5,000. Make grants to your favorite charities, and JCF handles all the administration and reporting.
At the year end, our board awards community grants, from fees and endowment income to UJ's annual campaign. We also make gifts to specific organizations, the elderly, Holocaust survivors, the hungry. The fact that we come together as a community at the end of the year to build community, that's what makes us different.
Get better at giving back. To find out more about JCF's impact, visit jcfny.org and download the JCF, we have a gift for giving.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 43 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. All of a sudden, a rally underway with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ taking another leg higher. 12-point gain in the S&P right now at 2832, up by 0.5%. The Dow surging 223 points, up by 1%. NASDAQ up 7 now, giving up earlier losses higher by 0.1%. Have to mention that the worst level of the day today, we had the Dow down 2%. The Dow had been down 458 points. To put that in context, it is now up by 217 points. 10-year up 9/32 with a yield there, 0.62%. We've got gold up 0.9%, 17.32 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude surging 8.4%, 27.40 a barrel on WTI. After earnings, Cisco rallying 4.3% among the names reporting after the closing bell today. Applied Materials up now by 4.1%. Briefly, bank stocks surging. JP Morgan Chase up 3.9%. Citigroup up 2.2%. Bank of America up 3.5%. Wells Fargo, the big winner out of San Francisco, up now by 6.6%. Recapping, equities turnaround higher across the board. S&P up by 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, appreciate that. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and a personal experience set our next guest on the path to creating a global management and services medical company, in a way disrupting how we approach healthcare. She believes the pandemic may do the same. Sigal Altsman is founder and CEO of Medex Global, and joining us on this Thursday on the phone from Tel Aviv, Israel. Sigal, so nice to have you here with us. First of all, I hope you're doing okay, your family, your team doing okay?
Yes, I am. We're keeping safe, putting all the efforts in it, and thank you so much, Carol, for having me today.
And what's it like? Give us, one of the things as we've talked to people around the world, is telling us how the virus is impacting them and what you're seeing on the ground there in Tel Aviv. Tell us just what's going on right now.
So it's been a crazy journey, actually. I traveled really till quite lately, and it's been interesting to see different responses by different cultures and different people. I came back from Singapore, then traveled to Dubai, from there to Israel. So in Singapore, people were quite laid back. No one almost wear masks up to 7 weeks ago. And then in Dubai, stress levels were going up slowly. And then I came back to Tel Aviv, where I was put in quarantine, actually, for 14 days because I just came in, which was quite an experience. I was quarantined, and I had my office set up in an apartment, which was an interesting experience. I think everyone now around the world is really feeling the same. Everyone is looking at how to keep safe, how the economy is going to recover, when are the vaccines going to come, and how are we actually going to consume and be provided healthcare services in the future. So I think a lot of questions, a lot of stress, and trying to be disciplined in keeping safe.
And so, Sigal, it's such an interesting point because I feel like we are learning a lot about ourselves, to your point, and sort of what we need and what we don't need when it comes to certain services, and maybe more importantly, how we expect those services to be delivered. One of the questions that we're constantly asking to folks, especially in your business and the broadly defined healthcare and technology business, is what is temporary and what is lasting? Do you have a sense of that, and what's your prediction?
I think what we've seen in the last 20 years is gone. We're going to a really significant re-evolution. I don't call it a revolution, but a re-evolution of the healthcare systems. Going to a doctor, to a GP clinic, is history. Most people want to have immediate accessibility and implementation of speaking to a doctor online, having access to data analytics of how were people with my same symptoms diagnosed and how were they treated and how did that work out for them. So I think that going to see doctors the numbers are going to go down. People want to look at accessibility, and it's going to be immediate. Digital health, artificial intelligence is the future. What we've seen until today is never going to come back.
Really?
I really believe that telehealth, using digital tools and artificial intelligence, are really going to change the landscape. When I meet a lot of CEOs and we discuss how is this going to reinvent healthcare systems, we all think that, in the future, instead of going to see a doctor who's going to give his personal opinion before discussing with a doctor, you would probably push a button and get, okay, with my symptoms and my genetic makeup and my medical background, 9 million and whatever hundreds of thousands of people with the same symptoms and the same conditions have been diagnosed with this and this and have been treated with that sort of solution. So before you see a doctor, you would go with data, you would be more educated, and you will be able to make more evidence-based and more objective decisions before even getting out of your house, and you will be able to do that from the comfort and the safety of your own home.
It almost sounds like some screening before you, because what's the next step? I mean, if I have a doctor who needs to, I have a lot of ENT things, and I'm often scoped in my throat. So, where does that fit in? I can't scope myself. So I'm just wondering, then, what's the next step? I mean, what's the procedures?
So first of all, the decision of how often do you really need to be scoped is a big decision, right? So more data about how necessary is my treatment, what's the outcome of an additional potential test or a scope or any other test or a treatment, right? Is it really useful? But that's a very specific, going to have a scope is a very specific outcome of some different consultations you've had. I think really that accessibility now and immediately is going to be on everyone's request. I also feel that a lot of other things are going to change. So we will see more investments in healthcare. We will have to see more spending on healthcare as percentage of GDP in a lot of different countries. If you look specifically at the OECD average, we're between 8.8 and 10%. The U.S. is close to 17%, which is a significant concern.
Right.
Yeah. But with this pandemic, we're going to need more inpatient beds. We're going to need home care. We're going to have to invest in those frontliners, those doctors, those nurses,
right?
That didn't get the attention they deserve for so many years.
Well, it's funny because, Sigal, we've been talking about disruption for healthcare, and it's really dragged in many ways. And I think the way this pandemic is playing out is causing people to rethink a lot of those systems and figure out how to make it a more productive and more accessible system. Sigal, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The CEO of Medix Global.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Your favorite restaurant may no longer be there after the coronavirus passes. OpenTable predicts 1 in 4 U.S. restaurants will be put out of business. As of yesterday, reservations and walk-ins on OpenTable's network were down 95% from last year. Too many planes and too many pilots. With most people not flying, Delta Airlines is retiring its fleet of Boeing 777s and says it'll have 7,000 more pilots than it needs by the fourth quarter. That's about half of its total. Stocks are struggling to shake off a government report that nearly 3 million more Americans filed for jobless benefits last week. The Dow is up 224, the S&P up 13, the Nasdaq is up 9. Apple is adding to its lineup of sports and other virtual reality content, acquiring California startup NextVR. It has deals with the NBA, Fox, and others, and has expertise in live streaming in virtual reality. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
If knowledge is power,
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
At HMRC, we're working hard to fight tax scams during the coronavirus pandemic. Here's how you can also protect yourself. Be alert. Think before parting with your information or money. Be calm. It's okay to refuse requests. If you feel rushed, it could be a scam. Be secure. Tell HMRC and your bank if you think you've been a victim. Remember, if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. For more information, search scams on gov.uk.
Typical Danny. Last night I was chilling with my girls, but ended up spilling my Chardonnay all over my fave lilac nightie when I saw the photo I was tagged in. State of my fake tan. But no worries, just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Be part of the sports conversation with Sports Talk Radio on TuneIn. Join the discussion around your favorite local teams with sports stations broadcasting in your area.
The game will be 185 to 183 and somebody wins, whatever. Football, it's either full go or it's not. You got like, oh, it's thud. I can practice what they call
Follow
thud.
national storylines and debates with ESPN Radio.
Does the NBA have a hiring problem when it comes to front office jobs in the leagues and a minority hiring issue? Stephen A. chimed in on that today on First Take.
It also resonates with me, Max. You can appreciate this position. One of the candidates was Brian Colangelo. We know what happened. I like Brian, but we know.
And hear what's happening worldwide with international channels like Talk Sport.
Seems as I'm sort of doing my life in reverse at the moment. I was on cricket tours when I was 20 years old, and now I'm 31. I'm sat at home injured playing PlayStation. So it's a tournament basically where you create your own character.
In your backyard and around the globe. Keep your finger on the pulse of the sports world with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Thinking you might play ABBA, Madonna. I don't know.
We'll
what do you think?
We'll see. Dave
Probably
Wilson.
not. Probably
He's going to
not.
have the chart of the day and the song of the day.
It's a great chart. It's going to be a great tease
really
for something we're doing later on, too.
Yeah, love it. It all comes together.
I know.
Dave Wilson.
Nicely tied up with a big bow.
It's very nice. All right. First, let's get to Charlie Pellet. He's got the latest on the business day. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there. If he's doing ABBA, better be Dancing Queen. I'll be sticking around for that. I'd be dancing in the studio to that one without a doubt. Here's what's going on. We've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all surging right now. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Number of headlines that I want to pass along to you. First of all, involving the Walt Disney Company. Disney and the unions reaching an agreement on Disney World reopening measures. This according to Reuters. Disney shares are up by 2.5%. Connecticut correcting its jobless claims number. Big news to 29,846. Apparently a misplaced decimal. Have been 298,680. Also, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is seeking a 10% pay cut from state workers. Says a pay cut will save about $2.8 billion. So again, number of headlines here. Stocks best level of the day. S&P up 19, up 0.7%. The Dow up 280, up by 1.2%. NASDAQ up 31. That is a gain of 0.4%. 10-year yield right now is 0.62%. Researchers around the world racing to develop a vaccine against the coronavirus, but Dr. Jason Farley, a professor of nursing at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, says it's a mistake for the U.S. not to be part of a global vaccine initiative.
The U.S. has decided that we're going to go it alone and not participate in several of the global vaccine initiatives, which is very nearsighted on our part. I do believe, we have our first trial starting here in the U.S. very soon. Some ongoing trials, but at Johns Hopkins specifically in June. So in a few weeks, we'll have our first vaccine trials going.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Gold up by 0.8% right now, $17.30 the ounce. We've got oil rising as Saudi Aramco slashes its sales to key buyers, and the IEA says the market is showing signs of improving. West Texas Intermediate crude up by 8.3% right now, $27.38 a barrel. We've got oil shares advancing today among some of the oil majors. ExxonMobil up by 0.6%, Chevron up 1.3%, and ConocoPhillips virtually flat on the day, up now by 2 cents. Recapping equity surge, S&P up 18, up 0.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet, Dancing Queen. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
When I get back, I want to see that, Charlie.
Yeah, I love that song.
Gotta hold you to it.
Yeah.
Do you, though?
And Madonna's not so bad either.
I'm not sure anyone needs to see that.
Everybody
love you, Charlie.
loves ABBA.
Love
Come
you guys
on,
too.
Jason Kelly. Everybody loves ABBA.
Oh, I know. I love the song. I'm just saying, like, Charlie Pellet and his moves in the studio. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, come on. Totally. All right. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly, Carol Masso. No ABBA yet. This is Bloomberg.
That is not ABBA or Madonna.
Is that the Jay Giles band?
Indeed it is, Carol.
Hey! Did you Google that?
I did.
Oh, Carol.
But look at how fast I did it.
It's really impressive how you did it. I could see the focus on your face.
I've always wanted to create a game show where, like, people are asked things and then they've got to Google and see who can Google it, quickest for the answer. Sorry, Dave. But I got it. Thanks to Google.
I'm sure our producer, Paul Brennan, will be happy about that. That band is one of his favorites.
Hey, there you go.
There you go.
So tie it all together for us, Dave.
Looking for a love. How about looking for a low? That's the headline on today's chart. And, you talk about a group that could use some love in the stock market. How about the banks?
They're getting it today.
They're getting it today, but today is really the exception, not the rule. I mean, you look at what's been going on to bank stocks and the KBW Bank Index back near its lows in 2009. And what Jonathan Krinsky did, the chief market technician over at Baycrest Partners, kind of take it to another level, was compare the KBW Bank Index with the NASDAQ 100 Index, which is, of course, dominated by technology companies. And when you run those numbers, you see that the ratio lately has been the lowest since the KBW index was first calculated, decades ago. And on top of that, he looked at the 200-day moving average, pretty popular technical indicator to get a sense of trends. And that, as of yesterday, this average was down, so much that if you looked at the ratio itself between the KBW Bank Index and the NASDAQ 100, was 39% below the moving average. And you've only seen numbers like that a couple of times. 1999, 2000, as a bull market was peaking, and 2009, as a bear market was hitting bottom. So what you're talking about is a pretty extreme move. And the way that Krinsky sees it, given the extent of the weakness, the banks are due for a recovery here. At the very least, as he put it, we're in the ballpark for a swing toward banks and away from tech stocks. And it might be that the tech stocks fall. It might eventually be that the banks rise. They're certainly rising today. But whether that keeps going, who knows? But he's just looking for that relationship to change over time after this ratio between the two indexes set a record low the last couple of days. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
And you know, we said you were teeing us up really wonderfully because Mike Mayo, who has covered the bank industry for decades, he's going to be talking with us later on. And so he's got some interesting thoughts about how the bank sector is doing. And he also had an interesting conversation with
Gary Cohn.
Yeah.
Did you not want me to name him?
No, I did.
Oh, okay. An individual. Yeah. An individual who worked in the Trump administration and also was the president of Goldman Sachs.
I'm curious about that, that conversation. And
yeah, me too.
The insight he got. Pretty cool stuff, Dave. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave Wilson. Interesting to get your perspective, especially
Abbott tomorrow, perhaps,
on this day.
Something fun for Friday?
If you're lucky.
Wow.
Wow.
Lucky. Exactly. Well, Charlie Pellet, we know, will be tuning in. Dancing Queen and all that. All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. We'll talk to you in about 20 minutes, a little less than that, on the other side of the close of
Charlie's
trading.
Probably funny at weddings. Don't you think? A lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah. Just get one Tom Collins in him and just let him go. Don't you think that's his drink of choice? It's got to be something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's either like a Tom Collins or a Coors Light. I'm not sure.
Or both.
Depending
on where we are in the night.
Yeah, depending on where we are in the evening and sort of what kind of mood he's in. I'm sure he's listening right now, just shaking his head. He can't shake his head at us in the studio like he normally does. Exactly.
So listen, we got 20 minutes to go, but man, I'm looking at the markets and we're up near our highs, just off. So like you said, the way we started earlier today and where we are today, very, very different.
All right, let's get some world national headlines now. And then we go to Bob Moon. Hey, Bob.
Jason, he helped a House committee write the Pandemic Preparedness Act. Today, he was back on Capitol Hill testifying that his coronavirus warnings were ignored. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports.
Dr. Bright said if the government fails to lead the right coordinated response when flu season hits and COVID-19 resurges, the country faces the darkest winter in American history.
When vaccine becomes available, we need to have a strategy and plan in place now to make sure that we can not only fill that vaccine, make it, distribute it, administer it. We don't have that yet, and it is a significant concern.
Dr. Bright reinforced the warnings on careless reopening that Congress heard from fellow scientists. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Republican Richard Burr is stepping aside as chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. This after the FBI seized his cell phone in a probe of possible insider trading that took advantage of early briefings on the coronavirus outbreak. Now, we've straightened out a technical issue with the report we tried to bring you the last time around, where the Democratic activists and women's groups are urging Joe Biden to continue addressing a former aide sexual assault accusation. Here's Bloomberg's Nathan Hager.
Women's groups say Biden appears to be following a familiar playbook, deny the allegations quickly, then try to move on. But they say if Biden doesn't continue addressing the issue, he risks depressing turnout among women voters in November. Brown University political science chair Wendy Schiller isn't so sure.
In the end of the day, in November, will voters up against a man who's been accused of doing this, lots of things to women, repeatedly, the President of the United States, I'm not sure how much electoral oomph it will have.
Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect valuable data for land management.
I founded Paratrees back in 2016, taking what I learned from my research at NJIT and migrating it to a startup. Our technology is to really enhance land management operations, so we work very closely with land management companies. So we have a drone that performs precision reforestation, and we do storm damage assessment, having access to drones that can collect data so it's much faster. And what is more important, we help them drive management decisions. NJIT has been there every step of the way, going full force with my company.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting...
Hit the court anytime with these great NBA podcasts on TuneIn. The Low Post.
So what struck you about this potential head-to-head matchup? What did we learn now that Zion is involved and LeBron and Zion go at each other for the first time?
You know, I still think both teams have to figure out kind of who are their guys when they get into a fourth quarter. I think you saw that with both of them. There were some kind of odd moments.
The Ringer NBA Show.
Who ended up winning the thing. But I did watch for a little bit when it was DeAndre Ayton and Zach LaVine playing against each other. And then as the days went on, Devin Booker was involved. Tell me you've seen the clip of Devin Booker when I can't remember who his opponent was.
Or the Haber Show.
At the end, it's because I worked in the NBA in the front office, and when I was 14 years old, my family moved back from Sudan to America. I went up high school here in New York
Find these and more NBA podcasts right here on TuneIn.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1972, Willie Mays hits a home run to beat his old team, the San Francisco Giants, 5-4 in his first game as a New York Met.
Pitch to Mays, and it's way back in left field. It could be. It's going, and it is a home run. A home run for Willie Mays, number 647 in his career.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
The Woj Pod with Adrian Wojnarowski.
Doris, you had reason to believe that you needed to get a test for the coronavirus.
Right. Well, let's just start with the headline, which is I did test positive for COVID-19. I was so tired from Saturday the 14th through Tuesday, March 17th. I kid you not, I could not be out of bed for 5 minutes without needing to go back to bed and lay down.
Search the Woj Pod to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL Draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season, like the Ringer NFL Show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening. Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. Giving up, I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen,
And it may be recency bias, having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Late session rally. What a turnaround from the depths of the session. Let's get the latest now as we head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, working from home, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks with an aggressive bounce off the lows today. Dow is currently up 300 points, was down 458 points. S&Ps are higher by 21. NASDAQ climbs by 36. The U.S. 10-year yield at 0.62%. WTI crude futures are up 8%. Gold gains 14, and transports are lower by 37. Leaders to the upside in the Dow: American Express, UNH, and Cisco. Cisco trading higher off of earnings. 3M and Microsoft led to the downside. In other news, semi-equipment names rallied late in the session on a report Taiwan Semi will build a chip plant in Arizona. And CNBC reported that Starbucks is asking landlords for rent concessions. Wrapping things up, Applied Materials reports after the bell. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. We'll be all over those AMAT numbers as they break again. Stocks best level of the day, and to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it is time for the Drive to the Close. And while it's been a tougher year and month for the YCG Enhanced Fund, it has, let's be fair, for a lot of funds. The fund is, though, still beating just about all of its peers longer term. Over the past 5 years, it is in the 97th percentile with gains of more than 8% on average annually. Great to have back with us the manager of the fund, Brian Yuckman. He's Chief Investment Officer at Portfolio Manager of the fund, based in Austin, Texas, which is where we find him. Brian, good to have you back with us.
I'm glad to be back.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys doing being in New York?
We're doing okay. It's strange, though. I mean, we're coming to the end of week 9 of, broadcasting remotely. Carol's at her home. I'm at mine. We've got, producers spread all over creation, some back in the office. And, this is the sort of way of life. I do wonder, you're in a state that is at least tentatively kind of coming back to life a bit. What is it like in Austin?
Well, you say that, but I think, traffic patterns, I think, are essentially the same, whether you're in a lockdown place or if you're open in Sweden. I'm still working from home. I have 6 children, and they're all doing school from home. And we're still ordering everything in.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that behavior actually necessarily changes just because the regulation changes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's certainly something that I feel like we've seen. I have a lot of family down in Atlanta, and they're saying the same thing. I was joking with my cousin this morning. His birthday was yesterday, and she joked to me over text that, she wasn't going to go out to go bowling and get a tattoo, which, of course, is, sort of the joke about Atlanta, that those were the first things to open were the bowling alleys and the tattoo parlors. In any case, as an investor...
Not exactly essential services.
Exactly. As an investor, how do you look at this, though, Brian? Because, you've looked at this market for some time. You see opportunities, I would imagine. Help us understand it.
Well, I think what keeps coming back to my mind is it's just a time of unprecedented uncertainty. And so then I think you really need an unprecedented amount of humility because nobody really knows how things are going to shake out. I think people are acting like, for sure the market's going to retest the prior lows. On the other hand, our country's doing more stimulus than anybody else as a percentage of GDP. I think it's as I would put it, you're either, I think, being ignorant or just a lot of hubris to be able to believe that you can accurately predict these market fluctuations. I mean, just think like if at the beginning of the year I said United Airlines is forecasting this month's May revenue to equal a single day of revenue from May last year, you'd think I was crazy.
Yeah.
And particularly when it's one of the most stable growing statistics. And then just, all this uncertainty, negative oil and stock prices now celebrating when the economy is in absolute dumpsters. I mean, the disconnect makes it tempting to time, but I think the problem is not only do you need to accurately predict future events, you need to be able to predict how much of that's already baked in. So you're essentially anticipating what the average opinion expects the average opinion to be. And I think it's too difficult to do.
Well, that's interesting. So you still have to, though, make investments, right? You guys have to stay invested. So what do you do in an environment like this?
So I think the best way to always position, particularly in an environment like this, is you want to be, as we put it, in global champions. But what I'm thinking of is here, dominant franchises that they tend to be networked globally in some way. And those network effects make them such dominant franchises that give them enduring pricing power. And I think over the long run, COVID is certainly not something that I think this will become a thing of the past, of course. And I have confidence in humanity to make it through and to innovate and to find ways to deal with it. How that actually happens, I don't know. And of course, things can't really come back to a semblance of normalcy until fear of that volatility subsides. But as long as you're in a business that's conservatively capitalized so that it can avoid blow-up risk and avoid any form of dilution risk, then if you're in a dominant global champion that has enduring pricing power, then I think the reality is, where else are you going to hide?
Right.
So give us go to bonds. I mean,
yeah.
Right.
So give us some examples of that, Brian. Who are some champions you like here?
Well, as I was saying, there needs to be a huge amount of humility. Normally I would tell you guys some of the best investment opportunities are right where the fire is. When people are saying, oh, this is dead money in the short run, but in the long run I see this will work out great. And I still think that there is some truth to that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean pile into those bets. So, if you look at the YCG Enhanced Fund portfolio, the whole thing is chock full of these global champions. Yeah. Some of them are performing well in the crisis, like MSCI, which does subscriptions it's the largest international index provider. Microsoft, Moody's, Verisk, they do insurance data. We have some consumer staples. So these are balanced, are doing well, but we're wanting to rebalance them to trim them into some of these underperformers that still have that great future. And some of these that I'm thinking of that are, again, globally networked businesses are like MasterCard, Copart, which is the largest auto salvage auction platform in the world, and then Booking, which, is definitely in the heat of the fire.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have a large, diversified portfolio that can be robust in various outcomes.
Yeah, we've talked with Glenn Fogel over at Booking Holdings. Yeah. I mean, they're figuring it out.
They're in the red hot center of the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to say, what? Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, I mean, you have global air traffic down 90%,
right?
And then you, of course, hotel bookings massively down. Their strength is this massive network effect, particularly in Europe, where there's all these boutique hotels.
Right.
They depend on booking to book hotels, and right now, of course, nobody's booking. But they are
yeah,
well positioned, net cash position. They could survive with no revenue for probably a couple of years, and that's zero revenue, right? And they can pull back on advertising.
Well,
to survive.
I have to say, we always appreciate talking with you, and it's really you sound humbled by this marketplace, and I think it's we've been calling this reality check week, and you can certainly hear that in your explanation about kind of what's going on and trying to figure this out. Brian Yuckman, great guest, Chief Investment Officer at YCG Investments, on the phone from Austin, Texas. This is Bloomberg.
When you leave out the rumors,
the illness does not come. Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, you know, I just...
Carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
Coronavirus is a global pandemic and a local story, but vast swaths of this country have no local news to speak of. It's the business model, stupid.
If a Starbucks had given away coffees for free and then started wanting to charge $5, people would have gone nuts.
The death and perhaps new life of local news on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pelota. Solid advance, volatile session. Sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. The NYSE's honorary closing bell ringer today, Sarah Buckley, a nurse practitioner from NYU Langone in New York City, as we await the latest numbers out of Applied Materials. What a finish, with the S&P up 32 points, higher by 1.1%. What a session, with the Dow up 377 points, higher by 1.6%. At the worst level of the day, we did have the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 458 points, down by 2%. S&P finished with a gain, as I mentioned, 32 points higher, up 1.1%. Again, worst level of the day, have been down by 53. NASDAQ scoring an 80-point gain today, up by 0.9%. The 10-year up 8/32 with a yield of 0.62%. So stocks rose, a rally in banks and energy companies, outweighing pessimism over bleak economic data and trade tensions. As for the overall market backdrop, Jonathan Golub is chief U.S. equity strategist at Credit Suisse Securities.
I do think this belief that we are going to quickly renormalize in terms of our behavior when you still have close to 2,000 deaths a day from the virus. People are just going to be uncomfortable getting back to work, and it's going to be the process of renormalizing is going to be is just going to be more drawn out.
Big day for bank stocks. J.P. Morgan Chase, for example, up by 4.1% today. Citigroup shares up by 3.6%. Bank of America up 4%. Wells Fargo shares rallied today by 6.8%. Cisco Systems surged after giving a better-than-feared sales forecast. Cisco shares up today by 4.5%. Again, awaiting the latest numbers out of Applied Materials. 10-year yield 0.62%. Gold up 0.9%. Crude, West Texas Intermediate up by 9.1%. Recapping S&P up 1.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet.
Move around. Motion creates emotion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Company's called Movers and Shakers. They cost a little more, but that name cracked me up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Yes, indeed. We're going to talk about some of the stocks on the move, but I do want to mention a headline crossing the Bloomberg because the markets are so closely and investors are so closely watching what's going on with the virus. U.S. virus cases rise 1.6%. That is above the 7-day average of 1.4%. And again, right, we have to remember, Jason, it's a national number.
Yeah.
And so you do have places, whether it's in New York or something, where we're plateauing or starting to see improvements, but yet other states are not necessarily seeing that. But that's not good. We need to see the number across the country going down.
That's right. I mean, let's say we are talking about 0.2%. So with not a huge jump, but as you say, above the 7-day average. So that is notable in terms of the trend. And it's interesting. I was looking back at Governor Andrew Cuomo's chart that he was showing today during his briefing. And you do see that on the way down, and when you look at hospitalizations and deaths here in New York State, being on the way down, it's not an even all the way down. You know what I mean? Like,
it's bumpy a little bit.
And it is a little bumpy, and it goes up fast, and then it goes down. But, you have these little spikes along the way. We do know that it is definitely playing out differently in different parts of the country. And so, as you say, it's a national number, and we need to take that into account. I do want to read some headlines, if we can, about AMAT, Applied Materials. We heard Charlie mention that we were awaiting those. Applied Materials second quarter adjusted EPS coming in at 89 cents. That's a miss. Analysts had been expecting 91 cents. On the top line, net sales came in at $3.96 billion. Also a miss. The estimate there had been for $4.03 billion. So those are the numbers.
Stocks it was bouncing around a little bit lower. Now it's up about 0.8% here in the after hours. So it looks like investors trying to make some sense, but it does look like it's down about 11% this year. But again, as you said, looked like it was bouncing around. Now just up a hair here.
And a reminder of why we care. Applied Materials, they provide all the equipment that makes semiconductors. So they're part of that sort of chain of electronics demand and all of those things that if we're talking about Intel or Texas Instruments or Qualcomm or the other big chip makers, we do look to AMAT to give us sort of a forward-looking, a leading indicator as to what demand may be.
All right, so let's do some internals in terms of today's market trade. So, interesting day. We started lower after that staggering weekly jobless claims number, but then we bounced off. Banks and energy in particular helping out the markets. Banks in particular, and we're going to talk with Mike Mayo a little bit later on our broadcast. Financials, Jason, your top performing group up 2.6%. Consumer discretionary up about 1 1/3. Information technology, some of those big tech names up about 1.3%. So that really led the way. Bottom of the pack, real estate, call it unchanged. Consumer staples were down about 0.3%. That was the only down group, though, among those major industry groups. There are 11. So consumer staples were the only one a little bit lower today.
I do want to mention one name in particular. It's your worst performer again. I believe the second day in a row. Coty.
It's not good.
They kicked off the week by doing this deal with KKR, where KKR was going to carve out part of their business. And it feels like Wall Street investors, as well as research analysts, have just decided they don't like this deal. They don't like the future for Coty, because if I look at what the performance has been over the last several days, I'm just going to read you.
Stock is down 70% this year. And,
all right,
and a lot of it, right?
Yeah. So sorry. Monday down 8%, Tuesday down 9%, Wednesday down almost 16%, and today down 8%.
It's a lot of it.
Good Lord. That's a
Morgan
terrible
Stanley cut
week.
their price target to 6 from 650. It looks like a lot of analysts weighing in. I mean, you would have thought Lifeline, this could be a good thing, but man.
I think part of the concern, just based on a little bit that I'm reading, is that they think that KKR basically bought the good part of the business, and now what's remaining is going to struggle. All right, let's look at
volatility. You mean?
What? Kylie Jenner. Yeah, there you go. Who's to say? All right, Bloomberg 50. Volatility, the VIX down about 8%, closing at 32.47. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave.
Who?
Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson, let's get to your stock of the day. The ticker is MDP Meredith Corporation. Tell us about this one.
That's right, Carol. It's a company that's been in the magazine business since its founding in 1902, and they expanded 2 years ago by acquiring Time Inc. Yet the word magazine is nowhere to be found on the company's homepage. Meredith's all about brands, like People and Entertainment Weekly, which were part of the Time deal. The company focuses on websites rather than magazines. It also owns 17 television stations. Now, Meredith has been publicly traded since 1946. The ticker, as you mentioned, is MDP. The company shares peaked their record in December 2017, and since then, they have plunged as much as 86%. Earnings disappointments have contributed to the retreat, and Meredith came out with fiscal third quarter results today. They brought more of the same. Earnings per share were less than half the average analyst estimate in the Bloomberg survey. Sales also came up short of projections. Now, Meredith withdrew forecasts in April and didn't provide any new ones for its fourth quarter, yet the results were enough to send the shares as low as $10.01. That was the lowest price since 1994. At that point, stock was down almost 18.5%. Did rebound later in the day, though. Closed with a loss of 6.6%.
Entertainment Weekly. Jason Kelly, isn't that one of your traveling magazines?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love EW. I don't even think they do it weekly anymore, though.
I know, I don't, right?
Also, you and I tend to buy, when we're traveling together, buy People and send it back to each other after we're done reading it. Can't do that anymore.
There'll be no sharing of People anymore.
No share. There will be no share. Buy your own people.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, do a right thing for Meredith and our friend Wendy, who works there, too.
Okay.
In any case, all right. Dave Wilson, thank you so much. We will catch up with you tomorrow for your market insights. And thanks again for that nice chart that tees up our conversation later on with Mike Mayo, Carol.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Hey, so we're going to talk banks later on, but coming up next, we're going to talk about autos. There's a new guy in town at Ford Motor. You're going to know his name, that's for sure.
Familiar name.
I'm just saying. All right, let's get back to World and National News headlines. For that, let's turn things over to Ed Baxter. He's in San Francisco. Hello there.
Hi, Carol. Hey, the coronavirus whistleblower, Dr. Rick Bright, in front of Congress today with dire warnings.
There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It'll be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza. Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
And he says there has not been planning. The Trump administration, he says, has failed. The president's response?
There are a lot of people that do not like the job he did. I don't know him. I never met him. I don't want to meet him. But I watched him, and he looks like an angry, disgruntled employee who, frankly, according to some people, didn't do a very good job.
Now, Bright, among other things, says there is not a plan for a vaccine rollout if one is found. The plea for help from the state's governors for more monetary help and passage of the so-called HEROES Act. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Washington must act. It must be smart. It must be fast. New York State has a $61 billion hole.
And in California, Governor Gavin Newsom is doing his May budget update today, and he says it is terribly tough to do without any federal help.
No longer a projected surplus north of $6 billion, but now a projected deficit for the current fiscal year and the budget year that we are announcing and advancing here today of $54.3 billion.
He says the state will use the rainy day fund. He says projecting unemployment rate at the peak of over 24.5%. He says it will probably land at 18%. He's asking state employees to take a 10% pay cut. Meanwhile, Connecticut has corrected its jobless claims to 29,846, way down. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg.
The markets. No, you can't just run screaming from the room.
A lot of economists are just throwing up their hands and saying, we don't know.
But you don't have to manage this alone.
What are you looking at to give you some sort of compass through this period?
Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
What is your early read as to the scope and scale of this plan?
Bloomberg Markets. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Pop salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the orchestra's 4th of July tradition continues. The program will feature guest artists, highlights from past fireworks displays, new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis, and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen Saturday, July 4th, starting at 8 Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
This is important information from the government about getting tested for coronavirus. You will be able to have a test if you have symptoms, and you fall into any of the following categories. Essential workers doing vital jobs to keep the country going. People whose work can't be done from home, for example construction workers or delivery drivers. And people aged 65 and over. If you are in any of these groups and anyone else in your household has symptoms, they can also get tested. To find out how to get a test, go to gov.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Hey, it's Jacoby here from Jalen and Jacoby. And after you watch The Last Dance on ESPN, which you're obviously going to do just like the rest of us stuck in our homes in quarantine, you can join Jalen Rose and I for Jalen and Jacoby, The After Show. And we will be joined by the director of the documentary series, Jason Eyre, to discuss each episode in detail. You can hear our after show right here on ESPN Radio on Sunday nights after the episodes air, and they'll be available on the Jalen and Jacoby podcast feed.
Search Jalen and Jacoby to listen today.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
Round the Bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks, Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one, not only.
Catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening. Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. giving up. I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We begin with After the Bell earnings news out of Applied Materials. It reported adjusted earnings per share for the second quarter of 89 cents. Estimates there, 91 cents. Second quarter net sales, $3.96 billion. Estimates, $4.03 billion. Shares trading lower, down 2%. The CEO of Applied Materials says the supply chain is recovering and underlying demand remains strong amid the fluid pandemic circumstances. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all rallying today. We saw a late session surge closing at or near the best level of the day. Stocks shrugging off gloomy data amid a rebound in banks. Among some of the bank names today that did move higher, we saw Wells Fargo today, shares rallying there along with a lot of the other bank names. Wells Fargo up by 6.8%. S&P up 32, a gain of 1.1%. Dow Industrials up 377, up 1.6%. NASDAQ up 80, that was a gain of 0.9%. 10-year yield 0.62%. Gold up 0.9, 17.31 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 9.8% today. Big move there. 27.77 a barrel on WTI. Recapping equities surge with the S&P rebounding 32 points, up 1.1%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser here with you on a Thursday afternoon. Let's head out to Detroit now. Did you forget what day it was? I did, for a second. I couldn't remember it was Wednesday or Friday.
It ends in a Y.
That's true. Yeah. I watched The Big Lebowski the other night, and there's a great scene where the dude sits back and he's like, "Is it the Big Lebowski says, what are you doing on a weekday?" He's like, "Is it a what day is it?" So, which I feel like is very apropos for right now. Keith Naughton always knows what day it is. He's one of our sharpest reporters covering the auto industry. Joining us on the phone from Detroit, and so many things continue to happen in the car business, even as we're all kind of in lockdown. Keith, tell us about Henry Ford III.
Yeah, so we're seeing kind of the next generation of the Ford family rising, and it's the fifth generation. You know, this is a 117-year-old company. So, yeah, that's very rare, particularly for a publicly held company, to have a fifth generation moving up in the company. So Henry Ford III, I'll give you a little family tree. He is a son of Edsel Ford II, who sits on the board of directors, and then the executive chairman of the board of directors is Bill Ford, and he's the father of another rising executive of the fifth generation, Alexandra Ford English. His daughter recently was named to the board of an electric truck maker, Rivian, that Ford has a significant stake in. And in the case of Henry Ford III, he just moved into a new position in investor relations, where he has that unenviable job of explaining to investors why the stock is down so much.
Yeah. God, I love, though, how much the family component, how much it's really stayed in the family, considering, you know, it's an industry that has certainly seen its ups and downs. So is he good? What do investors, if he's talking to investors, do investors like him?
Yeah, I mean, it cuts both ways. One of the things that investors tend to like is that the family provides this sort of continuity. You know, during the Great Recession of 2009, both GM and Chrysler, as you recall, went bankrupt and needed federal bailouts. Ford did not. The family kept it together. And the reason, one of the key reasons, Carol, that they're still in charge is when they took the company public way back in 1956, they created their own special class of family stock that gives them 40% voting control. So that's why they're still in charge. But investor advocates will say that sort of dual class of stock that gives one shareholder super rights over another is not fair and not equitable, and that continues to be criticized.
And this, comes on a day of the annual shareholders meeting. What did we hear? Because this is a company that, like many right now, are, sort of coping with existential crises, but that's not sort of a new storyline for Ford, right?
That's exactly right. Going into the whole coronavirus pandemic, Ford was already struggling with this global reorganization. They'd had a real botched launch last year of the Ford Explorer, a redesign of that SUV that went very badly. They've struggled to make money and sell cars, the basics. And so then this hits, and they lost $2 billion in the first quarter, and they're predicting a $5 billion loss in the second quarter. And it comes at a particularly bad time for them because they had a bunch of promising new models coming that are now delayed, including an electric Mustang Mach-E. They're bringing back the Bronco SUV. They have a redesign coming of their F-150 pickup, which is their best-selling and most profitable model. All of these things are sort of thrown off their strides now because the plants have been closed for 2 months.
So what's the outlook here? And you can broaden it out, Keith, because I am curious about, there's talk about, certainly we see this in China, that more people are driving because they don't want to be on mass transportation. And so more people are venturing into cars. At the same time, there's questions about the economic bounce back or what it will be on the other side of this. And that could be troubling for the auto industry. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What do you think?
Right. So the natural reaction, and there's certainly much validity to this, is who the heck is going to go out and buy a new car right now? That just doesn't seem logical when people are worried about just getting their next paycheck. However, the other aspect you're talking about, Carol, is spot on. People are very nervous about sharing anything these days, but particularly transportation. So, that puts Uber, Lyft, your subway, your community bus as places that people might want to avoid. And in that regard, private transportation is coming back in vogue. And what we've seen in the United States, at least, is there has certainly been a deep decline in auto sales, no question about it. But it hasn't been as deep as it went in China and in Europe. So there is some hope that the bounce back will be quicker and better, and that the strongest segment throughout all this crisis has been big pickup trucks, which is Detroit's specialty.
Interesting. All right. Well, great context and some really good perspective on what's going on. It's a complicated business for sure. It's an important business. We know that. And learned a lot about the
like
Ford
Succession, the auto
legacy.
Version, isn't it?
I know. It really is. That's good. That's good. All right, Keith Naughton, really appreciate your time, especially on such a busy day with everything going on at Ford. Auto reporter, of course, for Bloomberg, joining us on the phone from Detroit. Carol?
So Ford dealing certainly with its problems, and Sanofi now dealing with its own bunch of problems. We're going to get into that story. It ties into Bloomberg News and their reporting, so we'll get into that story in just a moment. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on this Thursday, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Wall Street overcame another surge in weekly jobless claims to close modestly higher. The government said nearly 3 million people filed for unemployment benefits last week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 377. The S&P 500 climbed 33. The Nasdaq Composite gained 81. Looking for a car? Right now, dealer lots are overflowing. But a Morgan Stanley analyst sees demand rebounding from the pandemic faster than supply as people flee cities and avoid mass transit and ride-sharing. GM is laying off nearly 8% of the full-time employees of its Cruise self-driving car division. The cuts will mostly be outside of Cruise's engineering and development teams. Taiwan Semiconductor is coming to Arizona. Sources say a deal could be announced as soon as tomorrow for the company to build a multi-billion-dollar chip plant in an effort to ease U.S. concerns over supply chain security. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. Bloomberg and...
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
round the bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only.
Catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events. To standout stations and podcasts, stay in touch with TuneIn.
Okay, here we go. With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL Show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She's faced furious protests to Michigan's coronavirus restrictions.
I didn't ask to be thrown into the national spotlight. I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm never going to apologize for that because lives are at stake here.
Governor Whitmer talks with Susan Glasser on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen to this episode on TuneIn today.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening.
Sports fans, this is David Jacoby telling you to check out the Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, as it continues this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Our biggest challenge is us. I am cursing this mentality of competitiveness.
Competition was an addiction.
Every day was a battle.
Dennis, get up here! And then, immediately after the show, listen to Jalen Jacoby's After Show podcast featuring The Last Dance director, Jason Ayer. Search Jalen and Jacoby to start listening today.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk about Sanofi. Sanofi? It is a French company company, and that is part of the issue that we're going to be discussing, because the CEO made some comments earlier in the week to Bloomberg that have gotten him in a little bit of trouble back home.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. It's a great story, among our most read on the Bloomberg. All right, first up, back to your top business stories and some news after the close. Hey, Charlie Pellet.
Well, hello there, Carol Massar. Let us begin with Applied Materials, making news after the bell, out with earnings, shares down 2%. It did report adjusted EPS for the second quarter of 89 cents, estimates there 91 cents. Second quarter net sales $3.96 billion, estimates there were for $4.03 billion. Bottom line, stock is lower, down by about 2% after hours. What a day on Wall Street. You had to have it keep it locked into Bloomberg Radio throughout the day. Wild day. At the worst level, we had the Dow down 458, recovering to a gain of 377 points, up by 1.6%. S&P finished higher, up 32, higher by 1.1%. NASDAQ up 80, a gain there of 0.9%. Going to be very interesting to see how Asian markets react tonight. 10-year yield 0.61%. Of course, we got you covered on those Asian markets. Gold up 0.9%, $17.31 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude surging 9.9% right now, closing in on $28 a barrel. Right now, West Texas Intermediate is at $27.80. So again, volatile session, banks leading today's gains. As for the economic backdrop, Lisa Shallot is Chief Investment Officer for Wealth Management at Morgan Stanley.
Most models that go back to March, most economic models were looking for the economy to do a slow roll reopening in June into July. For us to be seeing reopening by the middle of May in 2/3 of the country is actually an upside surprise.
Carnival Cruise Lines plans to cut jobs, reduce salaries, and shorten work weeks to cope with the pandemic-driven halt of cruising. Shares today little changed. Carnival up by 1 cent, up by less than 0.1%. Carnival, by the way, now a $12 stock, $12.27. Norwegian Cruise Lines up 4.4%, and Royal Caribbean advancing today by 1.8%. Again, recapping, equities higher across the board here. Late session surge with the S&P up 32, up by 1.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Really appreciate that update. So, a little bit of a wait-what moment today, big time, as the result of Bloomberg reporting. Joining us to tell us what's up and why the Sanofi CEO is in a bit of hot water is our Bloomberg opinion columnist, Max Neeson. He covers biotech, pharma, and healthcare specifically. He joins us on the phone from New York. Max, good to have you here with us. Set the scene of exactly what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bloomberg, in your interview with Sanofi's CEO, you made a comment basically noting that the U.S. had been an early and substantial funder of the country's vaccine effort, and as a result, it would get access perhaps sooner than some other countries around the world. Obviously, that created a bit of a fracas, globally, but especially because Sanofi is a bit of a French champion, based in France, long history of doing business there, being supported by the government. So, created a bit of an issue with President Macron, with his finance minister, and now the company sort of walking back that promise and suggesting it's going to be working for broad availability as opposed to favoring the U.S.
And Max, what I find interesting is, this is a fascinating look at, kind of politics and American politics and French politics and things like that. But it also speaks to this larger issue of availability and access to really important medicines. In this case, what we are all looking forward to essentially end this global nightmare. So what does it tell us about how this normally works and how it may work in this case?
Because we got to say, it sounds a lot like Hunger Games right now. It's a little upsetting.
Yeah, this is an issue where you, if possible, don't want politics and rationing to come into play. You want to be able to create a broad global supply as soon as possible. Now, as to whether that's feasible is an entirely different question, which is why you're having these questions about access. No one has tried to make a vaccine for the whole world in a short period of time before. So, that creates difficulty of step one, actually getting to a vaccine in a record time. Then step two, manufacturing at a level that's never been seen before. And you do run the risk of creating a situation where people are fighting over limited stocks. It's happened previously, and it's going to be even more acute this time. Really, the only thing you can do is try to create as broad of a global effort as possible to have manufacturing sites at different places around the world and well-funded ones. So when we do actually find something that works, we're not in a situation where it's determined by where it came from or who's making it. You could point to a scenario, for example, relationships kind of fragmented between the U.S. and China right now, but multiple of the most advanced vaccine candidates are being developed by Chinese companies. So you don't really want to get a situation where you're playing politics with something that has as great of a need as we do for an effective vaccine.
It's like mind-boggling. What's interesting about this story, too, is, and you write about this, how the U.S. expanded a vaccine partnership with Sanofi in February. And so I guess the CEO addressed that, that if we've helped you manufacture the doses at risk, we expect to get the doses first. Like, he actually said that?
Yeah, so the specific program he's referring to is they're going to start creating many millions of doses of a vaccine candidate before they know it actually works. That's the at-risk point. And then that's, essential, because if you wait until you finish a standard huge phase 3 vaccine trial to start making the vaccine, it's going to be months before you have sufficient doses. So it's a really risky and expensive endeavor, because you are almost certainly, if you do this, going to end up spending a lot of money on vaccines that don't work.
And forgive me.
It's that risk that the U.S. is taking that you could take a view that it entitles it to first crack at the vaccine. But the best thing, again, is to try to build that capacity at a larger level so you aren't forced to make that kind of choice.
That's okay. That's what I was curious about. You've got to come back and talk some more, because I think it's complicated in the drug industry. There are these partnerships, and you would hope, certainly since this is a global crisis, that ultimately, once these are put into production, that everybody has access to them as quickly as possible. So
yeah, great stuff. Really good context. We hope to catch up with you again soon, because you have been all over this. Max Neeson, he's a must-read on the Bloomberg. Check out all of his work. He contributes to our Coronavirus Digest and newsletter as well. Biotech, pharma, and healthcare columnist for Bloomberg Opinion, joining us from New York City. Carol?
And I do wonder if a statement like that would have worked in normal times, but not in today. I don't know, right?
I don't know.
It feels a little...
The French, man.
Ick. Feels a little icky. All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. Never feels icky is our own Ed Baxter. How do you like that, Ed? That's a bad segue.
maybe from my side, not from your side, but thank you. Just moving in the past couple of minutes, Texas COVID cases rising 3.4%, exceeding 7-day average of 3%. And the focus around the globe has been on health during the pandemic, but governments are having to roll out their budgets, and in many cases, things look pretty dire. California Governor Gavin Newsom is revealing his budget revision today, and he says the deficit stands at over $54 billion. This after a projected surplus just a couple of months ago as of $6 billion as well.
We are projecting in our documents we're putting out today in our May revise of that January budget that unemployment will peak north of 24.5%. One could argue we're already there.
He says he'll use the rainy day fund to begin with, but more money has to come from the federal government. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo agrees as the human toll remains stable and central New York has met the 7 metrics needed to reopen. So we'll see how that goes. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy says he'll be able to open beaches for Memorial Day. He hopes anyway.
We want everyone to have fun, but we need everyone to be safe. To accomplish both, we will be requiring restrictions on how many beachgoers may be allowed on any beach or lakefront.
And the C-19 whistleblower on Capitol Hill telling Congress that the Trump administration was slow to mobilize any reaction and is still not ready. Dr. Rick Bright.
But time is running out because the virus is still spreading everywhere. People are getting restless to leave their homes, and we have to make critical decisions on how to balance the economy and science.
In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our number one priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interest and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC.
In-depth analysis.
Behind the highlight reels, championship rings, and colossal paychecks, there are sports stories that fuel, deepen, and even challenge our love for the game. For true tales of underdogs, anti-heroes, and game-changing innovators, explore a sports documentary on TuneIn, like Sports Wars, telling the origin stories of classic rivalries, Rays Sports, about the concussion crisis that threatens football's future, and Dunkumentaries, a podcast devoted to the beauty and power of the slam dunk. For these and more, search sports documentaries on TuneIn. The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, just
carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day, I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn. Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of active
round the bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Wondering what to play next? Want to know what other TuneIn listeners are listening to right now? Head to the trending section under Browse to explore the most popular stations and podcasts on TuneIn today. Millions of listeners like you can't be wrong.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Pulls over a man into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Pass to the 5! Touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
At Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. After earnings, Applied Materials shares are now trading higher. They have been down by about 2%, but shares just turning positive right now, up by less than 1%. It was an update on Wall Street. What a turnaround, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average have been down more than 450 points, ended the session with a gain of 377 points. Up today by just about 1.6%. S&P up 32, a gain of 1.1%. NASDAQ up 80, higher by 0.9%. Banks and energy companies among the standouts today. Among some of the bank names, Wells Fargo up 6.8%. Bank of America up 4%. Citigroup up 3.6%. JP Morgan Chase up by 4.2%. 10-year yield 0.61%. Gold up 0.8%. 17.30 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude rallying 9.8% at $27.76 a barrel. Recapping, the equities overlooking all the bad economic data today, with the S&P up 32, up 1.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, got it. Thank you so much. All right, as we know, during this health crisis, consumer products companies have seen surges in demand for some goods, not so for others. But we are talking increasingly a lot about supply chains, worker safety, to ensure that essential goods are getting to consumers. This is certainly front and center. Let's talk about that, and also what it's like to be launching a brand amid all of this. Christopher Gavigan is one of the co-founders of the Honest Company. Sorry, lost my place there for a moment. He is also founder and CEO of the startup Prima. It is creating CBD products aimed at relieving stress. And Jason, you and I talked about it earlier. Maybe I could use some right now. Maybe I'm a little stressed out.
Are you stressed? Do you need some CBD? It's fine. We can get you some.
All right.
I know a guy.
Christopher joins us on the phone from LA. Chris, nice to have you here with us. Tell us a little bit about your world initially. You, your family, your employees. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, number one, thanks for having me. And look, we're doing as best we possibly can. Everyone's doing, trying to stay safe and sane and grounded, and certainly the CBD is helping. So we're doing pretty well.
And so tell us about sort of the decision to create this in the first place, and then walk us through what it's been like to launch it.
Look, I spend most of my career really helping people in the health and wellness sector and category, trying to help them understand some of these intricacies and dependencies that we get to create and define and control our health. And so what you put in, on, and around your body matters. And we have an opportunity to realize, especially in science and medicine, academia is really unpacking the horrific power and challenge that stress brings to the body. Stress causes us to go to the doctor. 75 to 90% of all doctor's visits is somehow there's an underlying stress condition that is causing the body to go into pain, illness, or disease. And so if you're confronting stress, you have to understand what the system is that manages stress. And we've got this newly discovered in the last 25 years body system called the endocannabinoid system. And there are molecules and compounds found in hemp, also found in cannabis, that can help manage, modulate, and help bring that system back into homeostasis, because stress, balance, and just feeling connected and centered and getting our bodies to heal from within is very much within our control and power. So these molecules are incredibly therapeutic. And how do you bring them in the body? Where do you apply them? How do you get the molecules to the receptor sites? Really matters. And so Prima is really a science-driven brand to advance that sense of balance and betterment. And we're doing it through a host of consumer products that people can buy.
Well, tell us about that, Chris, because, we've talked to a lot of folks in the CBD product area, and we're learning, and I've tried some, and some I love. They're not all created the same. And part of the problem, too, is, there's no real rules governing kind of these products, like a lot of cosmetic or consumer products that are out there. So give us a little bit of insight into kind of what are some of the compositions or rules that you guys are setting for yourself when you create these products?
It's a great question, because you're absolutely right. Right now, the space is incredibly sophomoric, and that was one of the reasons why I decided to jump in coming off the Honest Company, is to really bring a level of sophistication and quality and integrity and transparency that we know consumers outsource their trust to the brand, right? There's no Garnia at the gate. The retailers are doing their best job, but they're really not doing the deep vetting, testing, and validation necessary. And so it's really dependent on what the brand is doing and how are they testing, what third-party certifications do they have. So we've been doing so much work on, number one, the underlying science of getting the bioavailability, as we call it, and getting the molecules inside the body at a safe way. We have organic farming practices for a hemp, so you're assuring purity. We're testing the hemp extract 5 times to assure potency of the ingredient. We're working with third-party credible experts to ensure that purity and potency, and then number 2, giving the consumer full transparency. And so every bottle of Prima product has a QR code that you can literally bring up test results there, and then it's also helping the consumer navigate the space. So at the end of the day, you have to be an education, content-forward company, especially in this space, because, as you said, it is confusing, it is nuanced, and who's doing the work and who's got the pedigree and experience. And so we've done a lot of educational work. We have over 100 pieces of original content to help give people the right demystification, the right understanding, the credible expertise necessary to navigate it, and then giving them, as I said, the products. But it's about connection, it's about understanding. There's a level of emotion that every person has with a consumer brand, and that emotion is trust. And so how are you building and showcasing that trust over time?
Well, and talk a little bit about that, because I do feel like with Honest Company, that is something you guys really have nailed, is that sort of emotional connection, both through the design of the products, the composition of them, and the positioning. How do you take that vibe, as it were, and translate it here? What did you learn from that experience that you're applying here?
It's as you said, the trustworthiness of the brand is in how you position and how you speak to, so the tone and manner with which the brand comes forth. So it's in your design systems and your creative systems. It's in your words you choose. And ultimately, you're building relationship of not disruption, like this whole idea, I'm creating a disruptive brand. In this category, especially in the health and well-being category, you're creating a peace of mind brand. Because, again, you're putting these things in your body, and you're helping people move through very challenging phases of their life, both physically and emotionally. So if CBD is known for its anti-inflammatory, it's pain relieving, it's immunomodulating properties, right? So anti-stress, better sleep, help me with my muscles and joints. You need to create a deep relationship, and so it is about transparency and conversation. It's about industry stewardship and creating best-in-class products that actually work. Right? I can get anyone to buy anything once. Right? As a great marketer or a great copywriter, like, oh my gosh, create a sexy label and a beautiful product, and people will buy. But they're only going to buy. They're only going to come back if it works. And so, efficacy and performance, and this idea that what you told me is true and consistent over time. That's what builds a beautiful relationship. The whole idea of brands saying we're authentic. Authentic is just another way to say I'm doing the same thing time and time again with a level of dependency and consistency.
And Christopher, especially when there's just so much stuff out there that if people don't like one product, they can move on to the next. So they are going to be looking, for brands that are set apart and have some of the oversight that you're talking about. Christopher Gavigan, he's founder and chief product officer of The Honest Company, founder and CEO of Prima, joining us on the phone from Los Angeles. I have to say,